Welcome to Straight Talk, the place where we dot the I's and cross the T's. Now, with Dr. Josh Tuttle, a man who knows his ways in the environment of the international politics. Josh, welcome so much.
Hey, what's up, brother? Welcome, streamers, guys from the Telegram channel, X or Twitter, I guess formerly known as Twitter and Rumble. We have the chat open on X as well as on Rumble, and you can go and post comments, and then we'll bring them up live and answer them through the Straight Talk Cyber Cafe Edition podcast. So let's go ahead and you introduced Adam as well, right? Our frequent guest
Yes,
that
we're
comes on.
going to just welcoming Adam Maxwell, a British man living in Bulgaria who knows at the detail what's going on in that region of the world. We can say that he's the zeitgeist, a man who has his thumb in the pulse of society in that region of the world. Adam, welcome so much.
Thank you, pleasure.
Now, the first news that we are about to abort is going to be what it seems to be the beginning of the end of the Pax Americana and the American Empire as we know it, which is the ditching of the US dollar as the international currency reserve for buying dollars. As we all understand, for buying oil, petrol, which, as we all understand, petrol is the blood that pumps the world. Nothing short of that. In 1973, perhaps Josh could illustrate us better. In 1973, Richard Nixon, after the oil crisis in that time, made a deal with Saudi Arabia, and he says that we are going to allow the Saudi family to rule over Saudi Arabia, hence the name, in exchange of a deal that allows all the world to buy Saudi oil only with US dollars, which means that they made in 1973 dependent of US dollars. That's why United States became the world currency. United States dollars became the US currency. But that thing, I believe 2 days ago, came to an end when Saudi Arabia said, we will start accepting all sorts of currencies in order to sell oil. Josh, could you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you guys know that I've worked in Saudi Arabia and the GCC, which is the Gulf Coast region, for over a decade now. Yeah, I mean, like the dollar is linked and locked to the currency, the local currency, the lira there in Saudi Arabia. And when I was paid in local currency, but it didn't matter because I had direct exchange. I lost basically 1% on the exchange, when I transferred money. So it was literally just getting paid in US dollars, which was nice. I know the British were a little upset because they'd have to like convert it to the dollar, then to the pound, and they would lose 1% plus an additional, I guess, 2 or 3, depending on the transfer between the dollar and the pound. It's especially really bad, when the dollar and the pound, during COVID when it went up to a single 1-1 ratio, and that really hurt, pretty bad on that one as well. But yeah, I mean, it's been linked for a while. To not go off on a tangent, but the dollar is vital to, the U.S.'s dominance, economically in the world and trade. We know that gold and crypto and oil and a lot of commodities are traded in dollars globally. And this is how America gets cheap products. You know what I mean? They trade in their commodities, and then they exchange those commodities, those raw resources, for finished goods. And that's been the policy since the Nixon administration when they went to China to build, this globalization, so to speak.
So my question is, what does this mean to mom and pop, to your neighbor next door, to the guy who cuts the lawn right now or next week? When are we going to see the effects of such action by the Saudis regarding the United States everyday situation? To to the student that is listening to us, to the plumber, to the carpenter who is watching us now and is thinking, how does this affect me? What can you say to that person?
Yeah, I mean, it affects us in a lot of different ways. It affects us at the pump when we're filling up with petrol. It affects us, like I said, in some trade. For the most part, oh, sorry. For the most part, I mean, it eventually makes its way into the economy. So, like for instance, when OPEC, which is the regulatory organization that sets the oil price in the Gulf region, Russia and I think Venezuela was part of that organization at one time. They're no longer. They left at some period or some point. But OPEC, dictates the cutting of petroleum pumping in the Gulf region, and this is what keeps the supply and demand stable. So, as we know, going back to the 70s, OPEC did an oil embargo. We had an oil crisis in the West in the 1970s that affected the United States greatly because of we know the Israeli Gaza, or the Israeli conflict, between the countries there in the region, Jordan, Egypt, so on, etc. And this had a very impactful economic devastation to the economy that is what caused Nixon to completely eradicate us from gold standard. The gold standard was we were taken off the gold standard during the FDR administration, but they brought it back in, or certain characteristics of it under the Nixon administration. But because of the oil crisis, as well as a lot of the debt the United States had acquired from the NASA space program, as well as the Vietnam conflict, it was a point where the U.S. could no longer back the dollar by gold, and this is when the dollar basically went to being backed pretty much predominantly by oil and oil ventures and more, so to speak, the military-industrial complex. But sorry to get off on a tangent. I hope I answered the question, to make it
Question
more
is,
clear, I
how
guess.
does we can say that the world, because of the internet and because of modernity and Bitcoin is completely interwoven in a degree, in a much more critical than it was 50 years ago when this was implemented, which means that would be very soon to feel the painful effects of the US dollar being not as needed or as wanted as it used to be, which means how far away from it being the most sought after currency in the world.
I think Max wanted to make a comment. How about you take it? You're the economist expert, so to speak, in our podcast.
Alan, would you please?
Sure. I mean, I think the significance of it, if you want to talk about on an individual level, I think you first have to contextualize the significance of this event on the macro level. So this agreement's been in place for 50 years, since 1974, that the Saudi Arabia are trading oil exclusively in dollars. Now they can trade in any currency they want, in yen, in rubles, in euros,
Argentinian
pesos, or even perhaps XRP or another kind of cryptocurrency, which BRICS seemingly appear to be pushing forward.
I have a question though about the crypto, because crypto is traded in US dollars, right? Most of it, like Bitcoin and
there are many trading pairs in US dollar, especially through centralized exchanges. But it depends. You have many trading pairs, like you have with foreign exchange. It's like a foreign exchange, but on a new dimension, because instead of national currencies, you've got technology projects.
So it's not that what he says, the crypto is another foreign exchange, a parallel foreign exchange with its own rules and regulations.
It's its own system. It's of denationalized currencies, where the currencies don't represent the money that's being circulated in a given country or jurisdiction, but it's a token that's associated with a blockchain technology project. And that has its own utility, whether it's something transactional or if it's an application based. There's some kind of utility that's supposed to prop up these cryptocurrencies. Now, that could be, for example, XRP, extremely low transaction costs, which is why it appears that BRICS wants to be using XRP on the back end, and then there's going to be a consumer-facing token that I'm still looking into. But things along these lines, with the de-dollarization of the petrodollar, which has been an integral instrument in upholding the US dollar. As a result of losing the power of the petrodollar, we're going to be seeing a huge impact on US monetary policy. And so you've got to think long term. You've got to think the implications on foreign trade. You've got to take a step back, look at the macro, the structures, the BRICS, G7 coming down in global trade, and what this is going to mean. I like that one thing you said was that there may be implications for the price at the pump. We may see that the US dollar may lose its value relatively, meaning there's less demand for the dollar. So the dollar is going to be devalued, which means imports would be more expensive, but exports more competitive. One of the major immediate implications we're seeing is I think I read that Trump said, I would like to reduce income tax and increase tariffs. And then the taxation comes through the tariffs, which would what tariffs do is they're a tax on people. You pay them, not governments and not the other companies. The consumers pay them, but it means that imports are even more expensive, and which encourages internal consumption and spending. So there's implications for monetary policy.
I have sorry, hold on. I have a question regarding what I foresee in my ignorance, and perhaps if I'm wrong, you're welcome to correct me, is that there's going to be a massive devaluation of dollar since it's not going to be so sought after because everybody can trade with their own currency. And is there going to be any military? Do you think, Josh? This is a question. The first question was a question for Adam in his economical expertise, and the second question that I have is more of a geopolitical. Do you think there's going to be any sort of military retaliation, like an angry husband beating his wife for having cheated on him, by the U.S. government? The first, if anybody can answer, is like the first is the economical question. The first is there going to be a massive devaluation? So and the second one is there going
I'd like to go first.
Military? Yes, by all means.
I'd like to go first. So it doesn't mean there's necessarily going to be a massive devaluation, especially, like right now. We may not see that. It's a long-term thing. Military retaliation, I think, is unlikely also. It's like we're going to attack you because you're choosing to trade with other people not using our currencies. What I think is much more important here is this trend of Pax Americana and how they've used the United States dollar. The dollar has been vital to U.S. dominance in the world as a form of soft power, and how they've been using it with the IMF, with debts, with sanctions, especially. If you don't live in Europe, the US dollar has been weaponized as an instrument for control, and people are sick of it. In contrast to Russia, who have been forgiving debts all over Africa, which they've got decades of political history, being that bipolar superpower as the USSR, the last century. What you've got is Russia and China, when they're investing, when they're utilizing their currencies, it's not coming with these ideological strings attached. Whereas the United States, you're going to use our dollar, we're going to give you this money, and here's the political changes we want to make. For example, I know Josh may talk about I don't know if they were implemented or proposed US sanctions on Georgian parliaments for passing the Foreign Agents Act, which means that NGOs receiving a threshold of foreign donations need to declare that. So I think it's really US monetary policy and US governance and how those implications are going to come down, because everyone is sick of the control, the sanctions, the canceling. I mean, the West, under through Washington, tried to cancel Russia, a country of 150 million people, the largest country on earth, with rich natural resources, industry, and economic ties throughout most of the world. And this is really the implications of the de-dollarization of global trade.
Well, this another question comes to my mind, which is, as a dying emperor, this would be it's not a. This is there would be a bullet, a killing bullet in the dying in an agonizing empire that accelerates its death. I would imagine. With as any empire, will it increase its military ventures in order for it to prolong its agonizing life? A question for Josh. Leaving these to civil unrest, of course, violence, interracial violence, and of course, all around the world. Josh or Adam, if anybody wishes to answer it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when we talk about war and we talk about the oil, we may have lost liquid money. It's okay. I'm answering let me follow the question. So, basically, with the with the recent phenomenon of these forever wars in the Gulf, in Afghanistan, now in Ukraine, now in Gaza, and soon to be probably in the Caucasus, especially with the Karabakh region. They've all been energy wars. And there's been a theory floating around that the reason why the United States officially went to war with Libya, Syria, Iraq, and not so much Afghanistan, but these Middle Eastern countries is because this was when in the 90s they were talking about trading in rubles and other currencies. That's the theory, that the United States basically decided to go to war with these countries because they were threatening to use alternative currencies to trade their commodities, their oil and resources, and especially the yen with China. And I mean, there's a lot of indication now that we see with the sanctions on Russia and further sanctions with Iran, that this is a very and the fact that we have the BRICS now, that where they're starting their own trade union and they're starting to talk about ditching the dollar, that there's some validity to this theory that this may have actually been the culprit for these forever wars and energy wars in the Middle East. I think we lost. Like, he's probably having some internet problems. I think he's back. But go ahead, Adam. Would you like to add anything, or?
Sure. I would like to counter that Gaddafi didn't. I mean, he likely did propose to trade in rubles, but specifically, as I understand it, he proposed a new currency or a new currency union, new currency system for Africa or the Middle East, similar to the BRICS currency being proposed today. And this was a serious threat to the petrodollar. And this was during this unipolar moment of Pax Americana, where the Americans had the power. And that is my understanding, the primary catalyst for the war against Gaddafi or in Libya.
So this theory, so Adam, this theory, as you point out, that you've given the background, so there is some validity to that, because this was just a theory in the 90s and 2000s, and like I said, so I mean, you've given valid data that indicated that theory is probably fact in this regard. Conspiracy theory, conspiracy fact.
I haven't given data. I've given my perspective,
right,
which gives substance and validity to the theory that you've thrown out. This is what I've read about things. Gaddafi was a crazy guy, like not in a bad way.
Allow me
to
interject. For all the people listening to us, we are just three guys spitballing here. Simple as that. We are just people who think, who get their heads together, and they are just exposing what they think. We are not to be taken that seriously. So, speaking about that, regarding and the last thing I have to say before letting Adam and Josh continue is, a conspiracy theory is only acts as a conspiracy theory until because not all the dots are connected together. But right now we are connecting all the dots. All the dots seem to be connected already. So how long until a conspiracy theory becomes a conspiracy fact? This is where we are. Adam and Josh, please continue. That's all.
Well,
Yeah, so I mean,
go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, like, I don't want to segue into Tbilisi into the current political. We'll talk about that later in the segment or in the podcast, so to speak. But yeah, we're starting to see possible sanctions against Tbilisi, and I'll break that down later on. That's it's all kind of associated. Like I said, I broke down in the main Telegram channel, and I talked about it. The theory that, like I said, Ukraine, Gaza, and the whole Middle East and these forever wars are connected because of pipelines that they're trying to build and propose to Europe to avoid Russia and avoid the sanctions and to avoid using alternative currencies to trade in these commodities, so to speak. But go ahead, Max. Sorry, Adam.
Thank you. When we talk about conspiracy theories, what is a conspiracy? It's a group of people deciding on things. What is a government? It's a group of people deciding on things. So especially when you're talking about power politics, it's all going to be conspiracy based. The question is, what is the policy objectives? What are the policy? How are especially these soft power and intelligence agencies working? To say, well, these are conspiracy theories. They can't be anything else. As I best understand the situation of Libya, Gaddafi posed a threat to US power and he paid the price. Regarding Liquid Monkey's question about potential military aggression against Saudi Arabia for de-dollarizing or ditching the petrodollar, I believe this is highly, highly unlikely because we're not at the height of US power, which this is during Pax Americana, the end of Cold War 91 till 2020, we'll say, or 2022 perhaps, with the Russian special military operation in Ukraine. That's the end of Pax Americana, this unipolar moment. Now we're seeing not bipolarity of the 20th century, sorry, but multipolarity, which is the trend of the future. And that's what this, Saudi Arabia, they haven't ditched the petrodollar for the ruble dollar or the yen dollar. They've ditched the US dollar as you have to use this. So the USA has not been very good at winning wars. They're struggling enough as it is against Russia and in the Middle East, and they're trying very hard to not escalate that into a regional war because I don't think they could win that. But what we're seeing is the weakening of US power, the weakening of the US dollar, and today, as opposed to 20 years ago, this BRICS alternative currency is viable, feasible, and I don't believe the USA is capable of preventing it.
I would like to say something regarding the United States power. Any nation that can deploy 11 aircraft carriers, equivalent to 50% of all the world's 50% of all the nations' military might combined at any height, is a threat to be reckoned. So would it be possible to say, would it become as happened in the late 1850s till the beginning of the First World War, when England was at the decline of its empire, that it began to plunder their colonies that eventually ended up in the First World War? Would you see my point? Would history repeat itself? A desperate, ignorant government with the buttons in the mightiest military that the world has ever seen in all its history, with access to massive with weapons of mass destruction, will it engage in activities of rape and plunder? That's my concern, in the sense that there's nothing we can do, there's nothing we can trade. Let's just take what we need from anybody. Leading, I mean, after all, they're just going to beat the chest. With that, is there a possibility of that happening both in United States and in England? Because in a way, I would like to venture to say that England is a subsidiary of United States reach. Please, if you wish.
I mean, yeah, basically,
there's no
from my
sound.
understanding, I'm here.
No, you're good.
So
You're good.
there's basically a situation where I believe the U.S. is at the end of its rope economically on a global scale. I mentioned in the main chat on Telegram today that basically, and links in the description as well if you guys want to join us in Telegram. We get more in depth into these conversations from the podcast, and we give updated information. So anyway, long story short, I talked about the Gilded Age, and that during this Gilded Age, there was it was the most prosperous time in American history from 1800s and the pre-World War One. And some of the wealthiest families, Rockefellers, Morgans, Vanderbilts, the wealth that they had created from this industrialization during this period, it dwarfs, like I said, the modern tech giants like Bezos and Zuckerberg and Elon Musk. It's dwarfed in comparison to the amount of vast wealth that these families have accumulated during this period. And also, Argentina went through a similar Gilded Age at the same time, due to their richness in agricultural goods and technologies and innovation. Because innovation and technology also is part of this rise and growth in economic prosperity. It's one the same. They usually will see an industrialization and vast growth in economics and innovation. Nonetheless, like I said, I'll put up the the insert that I'd put on the panel. But would you guys like to add anything to that?
Well, regarding, I would very much like to know this is what I think is going to happen. There's going to be a massive shift of power regarding, we all know that nature abhors vacuum. There's going to be a massive shift of power between the United States no longer being the actual currency, and how are they going to, just like in the movie Martin Cole, the whole world is going to become a lot fairer, a whole lot fairer, a whole lot fast, and not a lot of people are going to like it. The thing is, how is the United States used to become, there's going to be a massive devaluation, there's going to be a massive inflation, and the United States no longer being the locomotive of the world's industry. This leading to massive unrest all around the world. And I would like to think, what is going on? What is going to happen? First of all, what's going to happen in the world in the future, especially in Europe, and especially in the emergent societies of Europe, such as Central Europe, the Eastern, the Balkans, the Eastern blocks of countries that belong to the Soviet Union, but are now emerging as industrial powerhouses, such as Latvia, Lithuania, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. What I understand is there's going to be a massive industrialization process. What is going to happen there, and what is going to happen in Europe, in the old Europe that we all used to, at least in Argentina, we all look up to, such as Germany, Italy, France, Spain, to a lesser degree, England, the United Kingdom, that although no longer a military empire, it is still a financial empire. All the money is flowing to London and its subsidiaries. This is a question for Adam. What is happening and what is going to happen? And of course, especially if you can chime in regarding anything of the now stale war between Ukraine and Russia, we much welcome.
Can you just be a bit more specific on that question? You say
Yes.
what is happening. You said what is happening and what are its implications. Like
yes. And the first question would
about
be. I'm sorry. The first question would be: how is this going to affect Europe? And how is this going to affect the war between Russia and Ukraine? But first, let's talk about Europe, the old
and
Europe.
and when you talk about, you say how is this? Are you talking about the shifts in global power?
Yes.
Okay, so there are massive shifts of power. The US dollar is a technical expression of this fundamental and objective reality, which means that we can look at the US dollar, we can look at like the DXY, the value of the dollar compared to other currencies, and you know there are charts, but those charts chart reality. It shows you how life is through quantified numbers and trend lines. So that if we're predicting, we're seeing the reduction of US power, we're predicting that's going to lead to a structural devaluation of the US dollar, which means that the United States is getting less powerful, as well as its allies and vassals. Now, I actually disagree with Josh. He says that he believes that the United States is at the end of its rope economically. I disagree with this. I believe that the US continues as a major pole of power, only it's no longer the unipolar power. And when we talk about the poles, you know, we've got America, United States of America, Canada, Mexico is actually growing there. We've got Latin America, Brazil, especially. We've got Europe, which has tried to federalize, and by federalizing to lift up its influence, and it's not really worked because Europe isn't independent, but under the same control of the elites of the United States. You've got Russia, China, India, South Africa. You've got a few others here and there, the Arabian Gulf states, oil states, Japan, etc. But when we talk about poles, it's these, and you have to look at there are two primary factions emerging. Instead of it being 20th century, the United States versus the Soviet Union, it's now the United States and its global American empire, NATO, G7, versus BRICS, Brazil, India, China, Russia, South Africa, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Gulf states, many more, Latin America. Dozens of countries are signing up for the BRICS. There was a BRIC summit just recently in Russia, and it was huge. This is where the announcement was made that Saudi Arabia will be ditching the petrodollar. So we're looking at the rise of BRICS as a significant competitor to the G7, NATO, this Western pole. And we can see this, that 20, 30 years ago, the G7 nations, their economic output measured by GDP was about 50% of the world, whereas BRICS were about 20%. If my numbers are correct, I think today those core BRICS members are about 36% or higher, whereas it's the G7 that have reduced to about 20%. So we've seen this rise of BRICS, and that's not even including the fact that countries are lining up to join BRICS. So you talked about the United Kingdom. And it's that money is flowing into the United Kingdom. I'm not sure if that is the case. I haven't got the figures to hand, but the last I remember that people are not seemingly going to the United Kingdom because the governance sucks. You said that the government's losing its power. Might it pivot to plunder, to rape and plunder, to systematically take from its subjects? And I say there's no need for a pivot. That is the governance model of of the government, of the Anglo government, of Brussels, but especially of London and the Washington. It's these elites are already plundering the country, taking the wealth for themselves. And it's this self-destruction that has resulted in the loss of the European dominance, or American dominance. And just very quickly, this is actually kind of what precipitated the rise of the United States after World War II. Europe was a century, was decades before, ahead of everyone else. They owned the world, and then they got too much, and there was a European Civil War, which we call World War II, and it was this event that totally decimated Europe, as well as World War One.
We have a question from our viewers, from our viewership. The question is this one: we understand that is the internet going down for good? Which means that, I mean, we all know that the crown of civilization is the internet, the highway of information. We have all the information of the world that has ever existed. We have it at the tip of our fingers, at the little tip of our fingers, which, although useful and wonderful, it is very expensive to maintain. Josh, what's your opinion about the future of the internet?
Yeah, I mean, I made this prediction in the Telegram channel. I always say, like, guys, it's glad that I'm talking to you and that we're on this information highway known as the internet. And like I said, big brains from Rumble channel, one of our subscribers had asked, like I said, is the internet going down for good? That's a very good. Yep, and that's a very good question, because as you pointed out, Liquid Monkey, the internet costs money to maintain. Like I said, you have the fiber optic lines, you have the technology, the cost for servers, energy. Because like I said, information and the internet equals energy. Energy costs money. As energy goes up in value, the cost to maintain these information, highway, or the internet is basically it's very finite. But more importantly, like I said, is the internet going down? Well, historically, what is the internet? What originally was its intention? The internet was Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I understand, and please correct me. I am the layman here. I understand that the internet is a conglomerate of servers that act together. Everyone has a little bit of information, and when somebody is looking for a specific sort of information, the internet reroutes you to a specific server in order to get that information. That is called the cloud. The cloud is several servers all together, giving the illusion that the information is nowhere specifically. But yes, there is a hard drive somewhere in the world that is hosting the information that you need, that you specifically need. So the internet may not go away for good, but some pieces of the internet may go for good. But then again, some other pieces may come up. I mean, in order to, because there's also the copy paste. We're talking about, of course, talk on a massive level. Josh, please continue.
Yeah, so basically, the internet was originally intended from university It was built at university level, and the government, the DoD, and the purpose of the internet was to be, during the Cold War, was to communicate through fiber optic, or through communication rather, not fiber optic, but through the computer, in case if the telephone system went down, or electronics went down in the event of a nuclear war, so that universities and governments can keep in communication with each other in the event of this occurring. And eventually, like I said, it went into research and development, and then enthusiasts like the Homebrew Club out of San Francisco, which was where Apple was created. I believe Bill Gates had visited once or twice, but this was a group of hobbyists in San Francisco in the 70s, I believe in the late 60s, 70s, and they would get together and they would build these devices and share information. And originally, the internet was a free platform that was basically paid for by the government and universities for hobbyists to communicate eventually, and then it became privatized because the innovation and the monetization of this particular innovation, and we're in the basically the rest is history. So that's where its foundation was. So its intended purpose, like I said, is the internet going down. I believe that the certain parts of the internet may go down in the event of any type of major world escalation. Fiber optic lines can be cut through submarine or submarine lines that go from continent to continent. They could be severed by submarines or saboteurs, like we saw with the Gazprom.
Yeah, that one.
This happens all the time. I mean, and there's also possibilities of putting devices inside of those submarine lines to cipher communications between at the source. And this is all possible. I mean, like I said, you could have solar flares, you could have nuclear proliferation that can knock out servers and information. Power outages, global wide issues in that regard. Because the servers they produce a lot of heat, and we have in these server rooms that they have liquid cooled, basically
We're talking about
fluid
space
that
age
goes.
technology that costs gazillions of dollars, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I worked at a server at one time. I can't disclose exactly who owned it and where it was, but I did security for him back when I was in college, and this was a state of the art facility. And like I said, they had, in the event of a major power outage or a knockout or any type of catastrophic emergency, a natural disaster, they had generators. And the generators that they had, these were these were huge generators. You required earplugs to go inside the generator room. There were several of them, and this is just a standard type of server. And basically, those generators would run continuously, and I believe for weeks if they needed to, possibly months. And underneath us were pools of diesel to run these diesel generators to generate electricity, keep these servers up. Well, when those generators shut down and there's no energy, there's no power coming in, that's it. It's out. There's no more information coming from those servers. So whatever data or whatever information or that, it's gone. You can't access it anymore.
Wouldn't that lead to a sense of 9 meals away from anarchy on an information level? The 9 meals away from anarchy theory states that any society at any level is so fragile that it's only 9 meals away from anarchy. That means that if you stop receiving your food, you get 9 for 3 days. At the beginning of the third day, you lose it, and you start literally feeding off your neighbor, and all hell breaks loose. Would that be able to happen on an information-wise level, since the world is so much interconnected and money is almost non-physical anymore, since we all have bitcoins or fiat money, but transactions via phone? So such a thing happens. Would that lead to a massive disruption of everyday life, leading to chaos levels?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, we're actually getting into possibly national security type stuff that could be sensitive, but for the most part, yeah. I mean, the thing is what runs a government, what runs a business, what runs like anything in commerce?
Money.
Information and money. So money is run by information.
Is not money the translation of energy? I mean, my useful time that you buy, that with your useful time that I use to purchase the useful time of somebody else, is that not money?
Yeah. So the energy equals energy. So time is translated to energy, and energy is translated to commerce. And the amount of time that you put into creating these products and the information and all this, it's all correlated. So You can measure time. You can measure. So like when you leave the planet Earth and you're traveling to another solar system or another wherever, time is relevant, and the energy that's used for that time is relevant as well. But for the most part, I have an equation that I'm working on actually with that. It's kind of an infancy, but the main thing, the main thing right now is, like I said, this is always a very go ahead. Yeah. This is always a very, very volatile situation. Solar flares knocking out power grids, knocking out information. This is probably the modern warfare that they are most concerned with is technology and information. So you knock out a first world country or like an industrialized country's information systems, you've defeated them already. I mean, they have to resort to using, you look at like the movie, what was it? Um, Independence Day, where they knocked out the satellites and the communication. And this was in the 90s, early 2000s or 90s when this movie came out. This is before we had, all the information we have now and all of the different technologies. But yeah, they just knocking out satellites alone and infrastructure. Yeah.
Little interlude of only 60 seconds. Do you guys remember the 90s? Just for 1 minute. Do you remember the 90s, boys?
I remember the 90s.
Yeah. Oh my God, those were the days. The 80s and the 90s. Adam, how old are you?
I was not around for the 90s.
Man, you missed out. Let me tell you this. You missed out. You see the smile on Josh's face and my enthusiasm. Just remembering bring us moments of joy.
I watched a clip that was like this WWE with fireworks going off, and it said, this was the peak of Western civilization, of US power.
I would like to think that the peak of human civilization was around 1997 when internet was just getting started. That's it. You had MTV, VH1. You had when MTV was actually good rock music. Do you remember that, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I've said that many times. Not so much, not on the podcast, but Telegram, that in the 90s was the peak of America's Victorian age, or their arts and humanities and not necessarily technology, but it was its peak, because that's where like the Matrix and all of this came. All these modern theory, even the red pill came from the 90s, and it was talking about identity crisis and talking about economy and power and
do you remember Beverly Hills 90210? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Or do you remember Friends? Do you remember Friends?
Yeah, I remember Friends. I didn't watch it, but yeah, I know something.
But you remember the cultural impact that it has, and now everything is just watered down. Anyway, enough of the 90s. Let's go back into the big news. We were saying. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, the main thing, like I said, with the internet is the reason why it's so volatile is, like I said, we're so dependent on it now. It's considered a utility. I think it was the Obama administration actually made it an actual utility. So that means you're as dependent on the internet now, or the nations or the global economy is dependent on it, like they're dependent on water, energy, electric and gas, and petrol. And I mean, it is what it is. It gets knocked out, and you have no way of communicating. You have the best movie. We did review this. I'll put the link in the description. No World Left Behind. Well, I'm just saying, No World Left Behind. Go ahead.
I was just to say something. Adam,
2 days ago or whatnot, the power went out in my neighborhood. I mean, I lost a little bit of work. I had to stop working. I had to go out. I thought I'd get some food. I went to the store. I bought some water. I tried to pay exact cash, and the cashier was like, "No, you got to wait for the system to turn back on so I can scan the water." And you bought 5 waters. They're 1 each. Here's the 5. So no, I'm not just going to take your money. I need to scan it. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I then went to the restaurant next door, got some food. and they're surfing, but they're struggling. They've got they found a piece of cardboard and they're writing out how much things cost, and it's like get the phone out, try and calculate it. It like just the power going out, not even the internet, and just the power going out for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was quite an interesting disruption here. My and just
go ahead,
finally, my partner's work is in the same neighborhood. 10 minutes later, her electricity went out too. A lot of them lost their work. It wasn't much, but it disrupted the productivity. The executives had a backup power generator, so they didn't lose anything. And some people were working on laptops. But the point of the story is, how long is that able to work? The backups can only last temporarily. So if you're going to take out the infrastructure in first world countries and somehow keep that down, it's something to really think. And that's, again, just the power, let alone the internet, which there's logistical problems, as Josh said. There's national security implications for discussing how those are maintained.
We always like to say at the end of our shows, all along this time, was that it's important for all the people who are listening to us, especially the young males in the Gen Zers, the people between 18 and 28, to learn a trade. That means, learn to chop wood, learn to be proficient in the use of a hammer, learn to be proficient in the use of an axe, in the use of a chisel. Because at one point, learn to boil things, learn to cook with fire. Because if any of these events happen, God forbid, people will be reliant on useful people, on people willing to go the extra mile and not depend on, yes, go on and learn the HTML or the stack or the QL, whatever programming language you are, yes, because it's needed. But don't forget that at one point everybody needs clothing, everybody needs to wipe their butt with toilet paper, everybody needs to learn how to make a fire, because it's going to give you two things: trust in yourself, pride in yourself, honest, good, healthy pride, and a sense of usefulness. Become useful. That's please, Adam and Josh, continue. That's all I had to say. That's my community service.
That's a very good point. So like what we had talked about, going back to what we were talking about infrastructure, that's what the movie we had talked about volume 3 in the Cyber Cafe. Truth about predictive programming, Netflix movie Leave the World Behind. That's what that movie was about, was the internet going down and the infrastructure, and then like all these Tesla cars start crashing in, these self-driven cars and all this crazy stuff. But we had talked about that, and for our followers that haven't seen that, on Rumble and a Telegram, go ahead and watch that again where we break that down and talk about that, because that was one of our earlier podcasts, and that was very interesting. What were we going to say?
To all the people listening to us, in the comment section, I want you to write down what trade are you getting into. Fishing, hair clipping, how do you call it? Hairdressing, clothes making, cooking, masonry, woodworking, things like lumberjacking. Those things. To all the people listening to us, please be so kind in the comment section to tell us what you're learning. And if you're not, you need to promise to us and to yourselves that you will learn something, learn a trade, because it's the only thing that's going to get you away from the mayhem and the desperation. Because when General Celente once said, when people lose everything, they lose it. So imagine that you are this big shot guy who is making money on the trading market, and eventually the lights went out, and when suddenly you end up being in the death trap, which is a city. A city without energy is a death trap, and suddenly there's a guy there who's chopping wood and who is selling wood. So please tell us in the comment section what you try. Promise this to ourselves, to us, and to yourselves. Go ahead, Josh and Adam. Please don't let me give you.
No, I just say go ahead and like and follow, but also join us on Telegram, man. Like I said, so like it's just this is just one stream of information. This is for us to get outreach, and we enjoy doing the podcast. But yeah, join us on Telegram. We talk about all this stuff. We get real in depth and long chats, and we do live chats on there as well. Not necessarily with video, but we have web discussions on VC video chat. Go ahead. We're gonna say Liquid Monkey, Mario.
Yes. The thing is this one. I mean, you need to become useful to yourselves. I mean, by the way, I am learning now hairdressing. I mean, I'm learning to cut hair, and I'm also learning welding. It's really fun. It's kind of scary because the sparks are really hot and kind of flashy, but it's really and it makes you feel useful because you work with makes you feel more manly in the sense that I'm working with something dangerous and an item, and you feel kind of like that. And I'm learning how to become a welder and how to become a hair barber. And it makes me feel useful. It makes me feel like if anything happens, I got this. And you must do it too. We are not honest to ourselves or to you if we're not telling you to call this call to action. Learn a trade. Become practically useful. That's everything I have to say. Please, Adam and Josh, don't let me keep you. Go ahead.
Productive is the word I would use. You can be.
Adam, you have no sound.
He's good.
I still have no sound.
I hear. No, you're good. You're good, brother. Continue.
Okay. Productive. You can be useful. You can apply yourself in various ways and think that you're making progress, but you need to be producing something. One thing that when you study the economy, the structure of various economies, you look at the West and Russia, for example, and you see that. Before we go there, you've got three main sectors in economy. You've got primary, secondary, tertiary. So primary is dealing with natural resources, so farming, agrarian, or mining resources, for example. Then you've got secondary, which is manufacturing. You're taking the resources and you're turning it into something technology. And then you've got the tertiary sector, services. You're providing a service. When we the West sanctioned Russia because their economy is lesser, what we failed to understand is they have a real economy and abundant resources. When Germany was defeated after World War I, it was forced to deindustrialize. Well, the West has deindustrialized themselves, and they have this service economy. And as such, we've seen that the sanctions have seemingly hurt the West more than Russia, which was obvious to see or to forecast a priori before the fact. There's a post that I saw this week, June the 11th, so Tuesday. Someone says, "I'm losing hope and I'm running out of money. What is going on? I've had 24 years of experience as a marketing executive in tech. I've never seen things this bad. Job goes up, and within 2 hours, there's 500 plus applicants. The requirements are absurd. I check all the boxes. It doesn't matter. I'm going to have to declare bankruptcy. I've never been so afraid. What is going on?" And the commentary about this is, "Oh, a marketing tech exec. Your job is fake. You were but a whiff in the fart-based economy. Sorry, service economy, and the chickens have come home to roost." As we're saying, when these comforts of power, internet, and these rural agrarian, when shit hits the fan, what do you have? You have what you own, what you can do with your hands, what you have yourself, the self-sufficiency. And if you're unproductive, if you can't change a light bulb, right? If you can't build a shelf, if you can't, let's say the power goes out and you live in an apartment building and you can't use the stairs because you're morbidly obese and you can only use the elevator, you're screwed. Let's say that it gets cold in the winter, the power goes out, or it's just way too expensive. Do you have an alternative means of of heating that. Let's say there's another lockdown, and this is enforced with the military. You have to spend 2 weeks indoors. Do you have 2 weeks of food in your house, or can you produce 2 weeks worth of food in your own house with a herb garden, a crop garden with chickens? If you don't have these things, you're reliant upon the system, which makes you very vulnerable. And it's this vulnerability to the system which can allow for genuine improvements and productivity gains. But as shit's hitting the fan and things are getting worse, and people are less bothered about these home comforts, what matters is what's real, not the intangible, not the stock manipulations, not marketing, not advertising. It's what you can see and touch, what you can eat, what you can manufacture. So it's the real economy and productivity.
I believe your queen is demanding you, Adam. You must attend to your queen, the cat.
So yeah, I mean, I
I'll be
remember
2
like
minutes.
I grew up in Florida. Like I've been living in Florida off and on between Florida and Tbilisi, Georgia. And I was here during a major hurricane that went through Central Florida.
Right.
And we lost power. I talked about it in the Telegram channel. I may have talked about it in the podcast, but if not, you're going to hear it now. So we lost power for 14 days, 2 weeks, something like that. It was unbearable. It was hot, humid Florida summer. Hurricane just came through, ravished. It took out power grids up to 100 miles away. And we had power grids that come from the east coast of Florida and the west coast of Florida, and I believe both of them got knocked out. And they had to rebuild the entire grid. And like I said, it took 2 weeks to do. They were bringing people from as far as Canada to Florida to rebuild these grids, and they had to bring in generators and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it was a complete mobilization. FEMA came out and helped, and we had a similar incident on the coast not like 2 years ago in Cape Coral. Same thing, and people were left. They were in their homes for I believe like 2-3 days before rescuers can get to them, and it's just you look at her. Go ahead.
I remember the mayhem. Remember Katrina in 2005? I remember watching it live. Not only the disaster, but watching the disorganization and the chaos that was all the efforts that were not being able to were fulfilled. All the failures, all the stupidity. And of course how much the death were piling on top of one another. So it's important to have your feet on the ground. Just like Adam say, become if you have this marketing team and the shit goes to the fan, you're screwed. If you're morbidly obese, you're screwed. Get busy with things. That's it. Continue, please, Josh. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, so I mean, like Katrina was complete catastrophic. It was a complete
catastrophe.
Way worse than what I went through for 14 days. But yeah, we ran out of food because the food spoiled because the heat and there's no electricity. It went out about 5 days in. And all we have is dry goods. We cooked everything we could. We had a propane grill and other things, but we had ice stored, some water. But like we ended up having to flee, and we went to whatever available hotel was available. I believe we drove almost an hour and a half away to find a hotel available, and I had to make a lot of phone calls to find out who had availability. And we were there until the power came back on, and it was insane. Like I would not want to go through that again, even though that we're used to these type of storms and the disasters that ensue. You're just never really fully prepared. You prepare enough, and then you still find out that there's stuff you could still do. And you learn from previous, but it's just you have people moving and relocating all the time, and especially globalization. You're never truly well prepared for any type of disaster that occurs, any type of event like COVID, for instance.
What kills people the most is the stupidity of other people.
Yeah, I agree.
Remember, guys, what kills people the most is the stupidity of other people. So in order to not be stupid, be prepared. I mean, I'm not talking about preppers. I'm talking about having your feet on the ground and learning a trade that does not require electrical energy, or at least requires the least amount of electrical energy. Or if you're going to have to use a lot of electrical energy, make sure that it's for the good reasons, such as welding shit, such as sewing, using a saw or a jackhammer. That's what I'm talking about. Learn that. Get colors in your arms, and not for flogging the log, if you know what I mean. This is the thing. Become the useful men that the Russian are. Because, I always like to think so. Regardless of Russian being the good or the bad guys, Russia is an invincible nation because Russians learned Russian literature. Russian literature is 90% human suffering and 10% description of the environment. And the same happens with the deep the deep south, not the deep south, the deep el campo profundo, the deep countryside of the United States. Those guys that you see with the rednecks, those are the heartlands of the nation, because those guys are going to get busy, because those guys have been used to work in the sun with their tractor, with their even with their hands, who knows how to get shit done. And that's the thing, get shit done. And this is the thing, I'm Argentine, and I know this because we've been through crisis upon crisis upon crisis, so we know how to sniff things out. But you, dear Americans, dear people from the first world who are used to get things cozy, you are going to suffer a lot because you're not used to the pain. I'm talking about the Americans, I'm talking about the Europeans, I'm talking about I'm talking about you English people, the British, the Germans, because yes, you suffered the reconstruction of World War II 80 years ago. Not you, your grandparents, your great-grandparents. The Americans in the big cities who are used to having things delivered, drone delivered. You are going to suffer a lot because you're not used to suffering. So heed my words, learn a trade, get in shape, and that's it. Let me please continue, Josh and Adam. If you wish to chime in, most welcome, because I'm letting myself be carried away. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the thing is like learning a trade and all that. It is important. The more skills and the more ability or preparation for any type of, it's not even that, but just in life, you know what I mean? Like you have an economic downturn and your AC breaks down, and you happen to know how to work on an AC, or a heater, or a furnace, then you can help a friend or family member and try to see if you can do a quick repair until you can afford to have it properly fixed, you get by. Or an auto mechanic. I mean, I have a yeah. I mean, like I said, I have a lot of different skills outside of I have Ivy League educated, I have a PhD, law degree, I top 50 universities, but I also have trade experience and trade knowledge. My dad was a tradesman, his dad was a tradesman, going back to the American colonies. And I know how to work on automobiles. I even worked as a mechanic part-time between teaching and education and schooling. I know horticulture and agriculture because I worked as a superintendent for a golf course, so I know how to grow things and cultivate. I learned some basic plumbing, electrical, middle school and high school. I was big into woodworking, so I learned how to create things and build. And I actually built my own little mini house, like a tiny home. But it was just for it was like a tool shed, but I built it from my bare hands in high school from the ground up.
Adam,
and it's still standing. It still stands today after 4 hurricanes.
Good. Adam, what's your trade?
I've got some trades.
What's your
I don't know. I've got lots of skills, lots of trades. Let me get to that in a bit.
What makes you feel most proud?
I don't know. I don't know right now. Don't put me on the spot like this.
You know what I do? You know what things I know how to make pastries. I am a pastry chef. I'm a pastry man. I know how to bake things. Right now, I'm learning welding and I'm learning to become a hairdresser, a barber. But I know how to make pastries. I know how to bake delicatessens. That's also very important. You know, get some weights.
And
So
mobility
yeah,
is good too. When I
Get
was
get
go ahead.
get a mechanical
what's that?
automatic. Get an automatic watch too, because like if you have no power source or e-watch, then you got to be able to tell time. So
All right,
I'm just kidding. Continue, Max. I'm sorry, or Adam. Sorry.
I was going to
go ahead.
say, I remember when I was a kid, 18 years old, and I would go visit my friend at university's house, and he whips out the toolbox. He says to me, Adam, you're not a man until you have your own toolbox. I'm like, oh, yeah, very true, very right. So I got a nice big toolbox, and it's nice because I've had a few things break lately, and I've been able to go fix it because I've got the tools, as well as the skills and knowledge to be able to fix these things and not have to rely on someone else, not have to rely on a handyman, a tradesperson. I can do these things by myself. And it's important that today with mobile phones, if I don't know something, I can look it up and figure it out within 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's one important thing about SensorTube, or YouTube as it's called. That you have a lot of useful how-tos and stuff, and I would like to see that more on Rumble. That people on Rumble. I'd like to see tradesmen on Rumble, even though that Rumble is a smaller platform. They've given us a place, and they don't, like I said, we don't really talk about anything, and there's nothing really for us that's censorable, right? But they've been supportive of our channel, and with followers and subscribers and getting our videos out. So like I said, kudos to Rumble. I'm exclusively on Rumble, and Adam, I think you're on YouTube, but I avoid that platform.
Yeah.
I avoid it. I avoid it like the plague. X is okay. It's another platform, but Rumble's just they've been aces, man. Like I can't, but like I said, I'd like to see more people, and maybe if I haven't seen, I haven't been searching, but if anybody in the chat wants to point out, like people on Rumble that give this information, prepping and trade stuff, just reviewing a couple of videos like how-tos, and I mean for the most part, just communication, because like if you communicate, you build relationships, get off your phone, get outside and talk to people, you'll build these relationships with people that know auto mechanic work, and people that have some basic trade experience, just because I'm a trade, just because. Go ahead.
Volunteer for a car shop, for a mechanic shop. Volunteer.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not?
If you are 15 years old, you're just starting and you're paying attention to us old farts, just go to a mechanic shop and talk to the head mechanic and say, "Can I help you out? Don't pay me. I just need to learn." And most of the time he'll say yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're paid on what is it called? They're paid by the job, not by the hour. So they generally will grab an apprentice that will do a lot of the easier work, and they'll help assist them, and they'll teach them while they're working. And then once they get enough experience, then they can go get certified if they want that as a job. But definitely so. Don't go into like a trade and be like, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to be a plumber, I'm going to be a mechanic and all that. And then you get there and you're like, it wasn't what I thought it would be.
Just not worth spending 100 grand, 50 grand, years of your life.
No, that's the best.
It's,
by the way,
your hoodie scam.
Yes. We haven't touched the subject of what's going to happen to the feminist movements, to the woke movements, to the LGBT movements when the money runs out.
Well, like that's the time of decadence. Like I said, that's the excess of money that's available for people. That's philanthropy. That's during the Gilded Age. The families, these family Vanderbilt. That's why you have these like universities, like Stanford and all of these, education centers. these were built on money donated by these wealthy families from the Gilded Age in the United States. I'm sure it's the same in the UK and across the world, in places where they went through economic prosperity. Not so
British
much.
universities, they've been around for centuries.
But is there any schools that were part of it, like Cambridge or Oxford, where they were donated by certain families? Or
of course, yeah, they got funding in, but again, Cambridge, Oxford, they've been around since
by
the
the
1200s.
royal institutions, by the princes of the counties, right?
Well, they started off as like kind of religious schools, and then they added.
Yeah, that's the Ivy Leagues. That's how they were
built up. And yeah, they get, I don't know what you call it, reimbursements, contributions by alumni. Certainly fuels things, but yeah, they like just the length of the history with the English university, British universities, like Scotland as well. I mean, it's slightly different. It's not quite Gilded Age. Things happen. One thing that's interesting, I mean, universities today they have these massive, they've been these power centers or these escalators of power for decades and centuries, and they have some of the biggest endowment funds, more than many countries even, and it's very much so a business. And so if you want to go into trades, why are you giving your money and time to one of these massive businesses that want to extract just money from you? It's what they really care about, unless you're one of the edge cases in certain industries where you really do want the degree. For example, law. It'd be good, you do need a law degree, very important, if you want to go into law.
I mean, the originally
guys.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Mario.
Yes. Girls seem to know they seem to know to dig the guys who seem to know that they know what they're doing. Girls dig guys
confidence
who seem to know what they're doing. All right. So when they sees you, with a welding helmet, and the gloves and the sparks like that, oh, he's useful. I wonder what he can do. What else can he do?
It is interesting you say that, Mario, because like Aaron Cleary always talks about like women like, ew, trade, you work. Like, I don't see that down in Florida. The tradesmen are the ones with the money down here, and they get a lot of really hot girls. So
yeah,
I don't know any tradesman who has difficulty finding, because they're dating doctors and nurses and like accountants, and those women don't care, and they're coming home all nasty and smelly, and they're like making money.
I hear because plumbers and electricians are earning six figures in the United States.
No, it's not about that, because at the end of the day, at the end of the road, when all the chips are down, women want men. And a man, what defines a man? His ability to say I am, to put his foot in the ground and says this is me. And how do you do it? With practical shit. What is practical shit? Hey, I built this furniture. I built this bridge. I solved this case. I got shit done. So and when they see a guy that has some muscles because he's been in the construction field or he comes tired of work, chicks dig that. They will tell you that they don't. They tell you that they want a sensible man who is not afraid to cry. That's bullshit. They want men. And what a man really means, a guy who is committed to the success of his trade. A man who is enjoying the success of the commitment of his art. So learn how to get shit done. To all the young people out there, I know the 43 years old who knows pretty much how the shit is going down, because I've been around and I've made my share of mistakes, to tell you this: learn how to get shit done.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's very rare. Like I said, in my situation, it's very rare to find someone who's highly educated and very skilled. But I mean, I think it's mostly just because I grew up around people that were tradesmen. And I was interested in education, and I went and I got my education. But the thing is, anytime I've been unemployed or having issues, I always can go back to trades and make money, between contracts. So I never am without the ability to try to earn wages. It's just right now the trades are not doing well in the United States, and that's because obviously the housing, bubble we're currently in. That we're in the first stages of it. People aren't really putting money in their houses now, and because of the cost of materials and the cost of labor going up, those type of trades. But people still have emergencies. They still need plumbing. The ACs go out. Their furnaces go out. They still need that. They're Pullman, working on the electric poles. Electric companies are always looking for people. Roughnecks in the oil industry, because I worked in the oil industry for 10 years as a trainer. But I would say if you're wanting to, the only job that I would say that I know personally that would pay dividends and you would be able to earn the amount of money you put into it within the first year to 5 years of the trade is petroleum engineer. That's the only trade that I know personally that there's a lot of demand for it, and there's going to be continued future demand because less and less people are going into it. And we're not ridding ourselves of oil. I'm sorry. We saw with the fiasco with the big freeze in Texas and up north in the United States last winter, and I think the winter before that, where Teslas were just basically shutting down. They couldn't even get them doors open or start them. So oil is definitely going to be a major commodity, especially in the third world and the developing world. They're still dependent on oil and coal and these raw resources. Go ahead.
That, for example, I'm into welding now. You know how much money the welders make anywhere? Just get join together.
I know 3 welders that I've known for a long time. One's a deep sea welder, one's a regular union welder, and I meet welders all the time, especially in the oil industry. I don't know anybody making under 6 figures. I don't know anyone. Right out of trade school.
Pretty hardcore.
Yeah, right out of trade school.
Yeah.
I don't know
sexy. Sexy.
They're bulky. I mean, they're like me. They're like diesel looking, man. I mean, they got the shoulders, and they're especially the deep well, or the underwater welders. They're very important in the oil industry, especially the tanker industry, because they repair a lot of the ships, and they're vital. I mean, the course is not easy by any means. You've got to learn all kinds of different things with decompression and all kinds of stuff, and it's very dangerous. But you have employment for the rest of your life. Like there's just, if you can pass the program and get certified. And I don't know any unemployed deep sea welder. I don't know anyone that's unemployed, because they just go on the internet and someone hires them. They send them out first class to like Dubai or wherever, to like the Caribbean and wherever the hell Seattle, doesn't matter.
I got a brother. My brother is a master builder. He's a master, but he's not an architect, but he knows. I mean, he knows how to build shit, in the sense that an architect is the guy who designs and is up to date with the theories of design, but the master builder is the guy who knows to put things together and make it make sense. And he tells me that.
Did we lose Mario?
Damn it!
Right,
okay, here we are. Can you? Am I online again? My brother.
Yeah, you're here, brother. Just take your time. Take your time. We want to hear what your brother.
It's like. Sorry. Damn it! Hold it.
You're good. I can hear you.
There you go. Hold it. We're having technical issues.
If you have to turn your camera off to lower bandwidth, that's fine. Not a big deal. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. The trades are important. I mean, you will see definitely a need for it, but I don't know. What do you think, Adam? Like with the in economic downturns, do you think trades are going to pay as well as they are now, or do you think it's going to be difficult because of the slowdown in economy and output?
Well, this is what I said, that it's about the real economy. So when if you have a depression or a lack of this decadent excess of money, of wealth, you're going to cut down on things that aren't essential. I don't need advertising. I don't need services. I don't need these technologies. What I need is food on my table. What I need is a house. I need clothes. I need real things. I need petrol. I need energy. So if you're focused on the real economy, on manufacturing real goods as opposed to these intangible services, then I think regardless of the state of the economy, if it's a good, if it's bad, there's this constant demand for your real services, your real talents. The word that I was thinking of when Mario was giving his great speech was that the word capable. He said, be productive, get shit done. I think you need to be capable. If you're physically capable, excellent. If you've got a discipline, which means you have the
Mentally
judgment,
capable.
the knowledge to know what has to be done in a certain situation, application. If you're capable, that's successful. That's success. And when you're capable, you can apply that and you will become successful, whether that's through employment or by getting shit done. And if, for example, if you have your own garden where you're growing your own food, that's capable, that's successful, because now you're not as reliant on the system, which is a vulnerability. And again, it doesn't matter how shitty everything else is, because you have the internal capacity to produce and to look after yourself. And that's what we need to be focusing on, those skills, cultivation, health, fitness, real skills, real application. And it's good to focus on a few things. Certainly, I think you need something that makes you money, something that keeps you fit, and something you enjoy. I think you need those three things in your life, and then you're welcome to go and do additional things. Just a final point. Josh talked earlier about how you can when I look things up, you can do so on YouTube. One thing I found very, very intriguing is ChatGPT. Is that if I will go in, I will have a conversation, I will consult it meticulously, I'll go in depth, and I've got the skills of prompt engineering. I know exactly how to speak to the AI. I know what to say. I know how to generate the output I want. And I can go in, I can get as much information as I need, especially now that they've got camera capacity. So I took a picture of, I think we had something, you take a picture of anything, say, what is this? Tell me about it. And what are the implications? So again, it's being able to, and having this capacity is not just beneficial for if I'm struggling building a shelf, for example, which I'm not, but it's a tool that's instrumental in my productive capacity, productive output for business, for work, for things that can generate me money as well.
Do you know, speaking about YouTube, do you know which are one of the most sought after channels in YouTube? Those guys from the Philippines with a stick, they make you like a spa with a swimming pool.
Yeah.
Do you know those guys?
Yeah,
I'm sure you
I watched,
know what I'm talking about.
I binge watched a bunch of those videos. Yeah, they're awesome.
The ones you watch at 4 a.m, where they build like a swimming pool in the jungle with
with a stick.
Yeah, it's just one guy, and they do it. Yeah. It doesn't in like one. Some of them they do it in a day. Some of them do it in a week.
Yes. And there's this guy who puts his camera and who just tells you how to build a tile shack in the forest, and he builds the whole thing with only an axe. He gets an axe and he uses as a hammer too, and he tells you how, and he shows you how to build a slingshot with the inner threads of the plants. He shows you how to build tiles with the soil that you get in the riverbanks, and to make ovens and you know what you guys know who I am talking about, and all the guys in the
Silks.
audience, you know who I'm talking about.
I saw one. There was this guy who filmed himself building a cabin with an axe in
Yes.
his grandfather's. And one thing, I didn't watch much of it, but 4 a.m. one time, it was a 30-minute video. I checked the comments, and someone says, if you look at him at the start of the video, you look at him at the end of the video, and he's gotten a lot more buffed, filled out. He's gotten stronger and more confident in what he's doing because he's applied himself practically. He's doing something great, and now he's become more capable. And this goes back to the apprenticeship thing. If you want to go into a trade, go somewhere and say, can I help out? Can I learn? Can I do this for free? If you want to get paid for something, you've got to first become valuable. To become valuable, you need to first be valuable. So if you want to go learn for free, invest your time. Again, especially if you're young, you've got plenty of time, and very quickly you will become capable of contributing value. And once you're able to weld at $8 an hour, for example, at $15 an hour, at $30, and that depends how good you are. You contribute your services for free at an auto repair shop, for example, and at a certain point, you're now adding sufficient value to the business that you could turn around and say, can I get $15 an hour, $10 an hour, $20 an hour? It depends on the value you're able to output.
It's very easy to make money once you know how to make money. And how to know how to make money, become useful, become capable. Just there. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. A guy with a stick. Take a look at those biceps. Take a look at the muscles all over the muscles of that backs. Under the sun. Chicks dig that. Can he manipulate me with those muscles? That's what they ask. That's what the girls ask. Can he handle me at my worst? What is it? Take a look.
Yeah, they're going to town, man. They're doing their thing.
And they make no nonsense about it. Look at that. That is real estate development.
Yeah. I mean, you can pretty much do the same thing in the States. You just pour cement, quickcrete, or what it's called, and that's basically how they build swimming pools. They dig it with a with like an earth mover and all that, and they fill it in. They put rebar, and that's it. It's a pretty simple process.
Also, we have a saying here in Spanish, which called is YouTube es la universidad de los autodidactas. YouTube is the university is the college for the self-taught. There is anything for you. If forever you want to learn about finances, you can learn about finances. You want to learn about you want to learn about trades, at least in theory, you learn about trades. You want to learn about welding, there is YouTube videos about welding. Not everything in life is about porn. Not everything. Take it from an old man who's wasted a lot of time already. Okay. I want you to be ahead of me 25 years. I'm 43. I should have known this shit at 18. And
well, I told you.
Sorry?
I told you about my story in Telegram.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys many times, and just voice recordings and stuff. That basically in high school, I went to school. I played 3 sports: football, wrestling, and track. And I got a football scholarship and a wrestling scholarship. I worked part-time while I was in high school, and then in college I worked in the summers, and I played sports. And then I left because I got injured, and it was too much. But I still did 2-3 jobs while I was going to school full-time, and actually did double time for a little bit. But I've always been working. I've always been learning, and even like I worked on my own vehicle because I was delivering pizza while I was in high school and in college, and I learned to work on my own vehicle, do my brakes, like everything. And then now I can do anything on my vehicle. Like I can replace anything. Um, as far as like major engine work or transmission work, I'd have to outsource that to someone I would prefer to give that to someone who knows what they're doing. But just simple mechanical work, like, yeah, maintenance and then, replacing parts and stuff. Yeah, I just do it all on my own. Very simple.
Oh, hold on a moment. All right, a little poll for the audience. I mean, do you want us to continue on the Ukraine and a little poll for the audience? Do you want us to continue talking about the Ukraine and the current events on a macro level, or do you want us to keep dwelling on how to become more of a man? Just a little poll for those who are willing, to keep wanting us to talk about how to become more of a man, type 1. For those who want us to continue talking about Ukraine and Russia and the macro economy in the world, press 2. Okay, we're gonna give a couple of minutes. How about we take a 5-minute break or a 2-minute break? So we
I'm gonna take a break.
How about take a break?
What?
5 minutes, and we let everybody. I mean, can you write down for a poll for us to keep wanting to talk about how to become more of a man? Press 1. For those who wants to keep talking about the current events on a macro level, press 2. So thank you so much, and we'll be back in 5 minutes.
All right.
Yo, this is Gonzalo Fresh. I just dropped a fresh track, yo. It's called Ukraine. Word up. Got an album built in a Russian race, riding through Ukraine at the hop, on and pace from the night so wide, through this high-stick chase. On these roads, I'm a child in the vast open space, whom I bide through the streets in dime the light, seeking freedom, a beacon in the depth of night, from a world of cheers to a silent plight. In the gears, my fears, in the moons of light, headed to the border, I hope the few. Every road, every corner brings something new, from the cities by hue to the skies of blue. In the night's cool dew, I found my core, from the jump to the chain to the Davis turn. The Ukraine gang where there's fire burn, with some heartbreaker now it's my concern. In this life shaking world,
it's Ukraine and Ukraine, can't deny that I'm detained. In this game, in this pain, my spirit is not drained. In Ukraine and Ukraine, where's truth a bright flame? In these chains, in this lane, my voice still remains.
Yo, this is Gonzalo Fresh. I just dropped a fresh track, yo. It's called Ukraine. Word up. Got an album built in a Russian race, riding through Ukraine at the hop, on and pace from the night so wide, through this high-stick chase. On these roads, I'm a child in a vast open space, whom I bide through the streets in dime the light, seeking freedom, a beacon in the depth of night, from a world of cheers to a silent plight. In the gears, my fears, in the moons of light, headed to the border, I hope the few. Every road, every corner brings something new, from the cities by hue to the skies of blue. In the night's cool dew, I found my core, from the jump to the chain to the Davis turn. The Ukraine gang where there's fire burn, with some heartbreaker now it's my concern. In this life shaking world,
it's Ukraine and Ukraine, can't deny that I'm detained. In this game, in this pain, my spirit is not drained. In Ukraine and Ukraine, where's truth a bright flame? In these chains, in this lane, my voice still remains.
yo.
What's up? Elo Fresh. You there, Mario? Did he do Mickey Mouse or what's it called? Walt Disney on this? Oh, there he is. Yeah.
Oh, hello. I'm here. I'm Mickey Mouse. Because got to become a.
I wish like Anthony or Jim Jones would join us, man. Like I don't know where they're at. I guess
Well,
they're
they might in the future. I mean, we could keep making a podcast like this and generate traction. I mean, it was a good time. But let's just enjoy with what we have. Are we
Of
live?
course. Yeah, we're live.
Okay.
We're good.
All right. So this is the thing. All right. How about this? We close up. We round up with how to become more of a man, and then we continue with the current events. We are at the pretty much at the.
Yeah, I want to cover Tbilisi too, because I did a teaser that we are going to talk about it, and never really got to actually making a podcast because it would have been a short podcast, but we can put that into this because we're catching up with a lot of stuff that what's been going on since our last podcast.
All right, this is what an idea. We should dedicate one full show for how to become more of a man. And right now, this show was actually to talk about current events. So let's continue with current events on a macro level, and then we may wrap up later with how to become more of a man.
Like I said, if we segue into it, it's cool. Like whatever, if it's relevant, why not? Because that's the main basis of our Telegram group, and like. Because we founded the Telegram group in support of Gonzalo Lira and the Coach Red Pill, and a lot of his this was when the Telegram group was created, was when he was transitioning from Coach Red Pill to his brand Gonzalo Lira, the journalist, and his extensive coverage of Ukraine and the conflict that's ongoing that I had said would end when it was getting defunded, and now Europe is funding it, and now the U.S. has decided to refund it, and it's just I called it when it was done, and for some reason that oil and the gas basin and the Azov Sea and Donbass is just a little too tempting for the European Union because of the fiasco that occurred with the failed pipeline that was proposed from Gaza, and the fact that there is one of the largest finds of natural gas basins right off the coast of southern Gaza in the history of Eastern Mediterranean. We're talking about a lot of cubic meters of gas sitting underneath Gaza and the sea, and the Israel and the big oil does not want to share profits or anything with these people. So we know what that was about. I've covered that one of the first podcasts of the show, and it's an ongoing conflict. Go ahead. What are you saying, Adam?
I'm reading that there is more than 1 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Now, I don't know the context of that. Sounds a lot.
It's a lot. There's more. There's actually more. I think more in Donbass and Ukraine. And there's a lot in the Azov Sea. There's a lot. They don't even know how much is there. They did a geological survey prior to the what was it called, the Maidan event and Maidan, in Kiev. Prior to that, they had found a lot of cubic. They found a lot of gas there and a lot of oil in eastern Donbass, and that was part of the reason why Hunter Biden was there negotiating deals with this, I guess, unofficially for the big man and the State Department to develop extracting that. And it was kind of interesting because Exxon was in Russia extracting the oil with our platforms, or their platforms rather, just off of the Black Sea. And was it Sochi where the Winter Olympics was? That's been abandoned. They were forced to leave because of the embargoes and tariffs, or I guess the embargoes. So like Exxon is no longer in the one second. Exxon is no longer in Russia or and that part of the Black Sea, and I think they've moved that platform to Israel, and now that one has that platform has left Israel, and now I don't know where it is. Maybe it's going to Turkey, but yeah, it's basically all roads lead to Europe. That they wanted to build pipelines to avoid what is it, German. I talked about it in the Telegram channel, but they're all linked. Ukraine and Gaza is completely linked. It's linked to oil. These are continuation of energy wars in the Middle East, and now East Med and the Black Sea. There was one last thing I want to add. There was a academic journal about Black Sea. I posted it in the main chat and Telegram, but this was prior to the current conflicts in the Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Karabakh. That Black Sea would be the future, where the future wars would encompass, due to the amount of finds that they're finding in northern Turkey, just off of the Black Sea in northern Turkey, Cyprus, off the coast of Israel, Gaza, and the eastern part of the Black Sea, predominantly around Crimea Peninsula, Georgia, and like I said, northern Turkey, and of course Russia near Sochi. Sorry, continue.
What's the name of your question to Adam? What's the name of your majestic owner?
It's the little prince. His name's Pusik.
Pusik.
Pusik. Yes.
Okay. Pusik.
Pusik. Adorable little.
He looks well fed. He looks well taken care of.
Oh, he's adored. He's very sweet.
All right.
And just an attention slut.
Yeah. What's the name of your owner? Josh? Sparkles, something like that.
You're talking about my daughter's cat. Yeah, she named it PRS, I guess, Princess Rainbow Sparkle.
Princess Rainbow Sparkles. That's the name of your owner. My black one is called Pisculito. Pisculito Travieso. That would be Pisculito Naughty, because he's naughty. And I didn't castrate him, so he goes around prancing with his two marbles.
Yeah.
And he represents me in the animal world.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Also, I'm sorry. For just a little wrap up on how to become more of a man. Never forget, gentlemen, who are listening to us, to smile, to laugh. There is this beautiful song. Always look at the bright side of life. Something like that. Just remember. There's this Monty Python song. Always look at the bright side of life. Remember, sing it at least once a day, every day for the next 35 years, and life is going to be better for you. You were saying something about Tbilisi. Going back to the important news, you were saying something about Tbilisi, Josh. I'm sorry, but I couldn't catch it because my connection sucks. Remember, I'm in a third world country. You were saying something about it. If you please to catch me up into.
Yeah. So, Big Brains has given you your answer. He put one. So.
Oh, there's
Uh-oh. We'll wait for Mario to come back. He's indisposed.
Mario, perhaps you should cease the video for the moment.
Yeah, I would say go to audio. You'd be good on that. All right, so we'll wait for Mario to catch up. Yeah, I was talking about Tbilisi. I've got a clip. Wait 1 second. Where are we? I've got a clip. But Mario, what was the comments for 1 + 1 or 2? What to talk about Ukraine or not talk about Ukraine?
I also didn't pay attention to.
I'm sorry.
Corresponded to.
Connection sucks. I'm going to log off. Connection sucks. Connection sucks. Connection sucks. I'm logging off. I'm logging on again.
So one question. Off. So what does one off. Represent and what? Okay.
1 represents more of a man, and 2 represents broader macro news.
Oh, okay. All right, so we'll get into that. I just want to cover Tbilisi real quick, and then we can go back to the pro science of everything. So behind that, so I got a clip. Let me see if I can bring it up again. Present it. Share screen. Play the audio.
Big brains, is that true? I mean, you want to us to talk more how to become more of a man? Yeah, okay. But let's continue with the Tbilisi, and then we come back.
So this was the teaser for the I guess this upcoming podcast that we're talking about now. But I'll go ahead and play it for those that didn't see it. Okay, so that's that. Yeah, so like Adam, you're up to date with this. Do you know what's going on in Tbilisi?
Not since the law passed. I heard that the United States attempted to. They were discussing sanctioning the Georgian parliament in response. And that was the last I heard about it. So, and again, they were seeking to sanction an ostensibly sovereign parliament for passing a law which the United States has, Russia has as well, just an objectively reasonable law. The United States believes it has the authority to overstep and to sanction the Georgian parliament for this. Why? And again, with the dollar, they would, they've used it as a weapon rather than as a tool for global trade, and this has been one of their largest downfalls.
The thing is what the United States does not understand is the fact that Georgia has one of the strongest currencies in the region. Like outside of Azerbaijan, yeah, their currency is very stable, and their economy is very stable.
I got a question out of my own ignorance. This is not a rhetorical question. This is a question out of ignorance. Is that region some sort of a Wild West, Mad Maxi, backward, savage land of people who eat their own, or is it like a civilized sort of a little bit less developed country, but civilized nonetheless, like Europe? Because the only information that I have about those countries is Eurotrip. You remember the movie Eurotrip from the early 2000s?
Yeah.
Is it like Haiti or Slovenia?
Josh. Yeah. Actually, it's more like Germany or like Prague, like Czech Republic. But it's first world,
rather developed people.
Yeah, I think the literacy rate in Georgia is 100%. The foreign literacy rate, so it means that, and you gotta understand, the population is like 3 to 5 million, give or take, for the nation. The Tbilisi is the capital; it's like 1.5 million, and the capital alone, I think the English language proficiency is somewhere around between 50 and 60%. So it's relative to a lot of Western and Central European countries as far as that. But they not only speak English fluently, they speak multiple languages. So they speak. Most people in Georgia will at least speak some level of Russian, if not fluent, or first language, or second language. English is a first language or second language. These are Georgians, by the way, not like foreigners that live there. So a lot of French, some French is spoken, German, but predominantly English, Russian, and Georgian, the native tongue. I usually don't have a problem communicating with anybody in the country because the populations over the age of 40 will speak some level of Russian, if not fluent, first language, because they grew up in this. They grew up in the Soviet period.
Georgian, can you say something in Georgian that we may not understand?
Gamajos. Do you know what Gamajos means?
No.
Gamajos means, no. Gamajos means cheers. It means like yeah. To say
Paruski
yazik. Chut chut.
I don't know. I only know how to say. I only know how to say pipinka in Slovakian or Slovenian, something like that. Slovakian, pipinka.
Awesome.
You know what I meant, because there was this Slovakian porn star called Claudia Russo, And she said she talked about pipinka, pipinka. That's the only the word I know how to say.
All right.
Claudia Russo is the cultural ambassador of Slovakia.
So
Sandra Russo, I'm sorry, Sandra Russo.
So going back to answer your question, you gotta understand the Georgian people were Soviet people up until they gained independence in '91, and they fought a war with Russia, 91 for 2 years to cede that independence. They lost Abkhazia and Ossetia as a result of that conflict, which they regained they rehashed that back out in 2008. And that was backed by the Bush administration, who said, "I got your back. I got your back, yo." And they didn't have their back, and that war ended in 3 days, with them losing more territory because the U.S. pushed them into a conflict. And then now there's this third conflict. There's this third conflict, the Ukrainian conflict, and Zelensky and Biden administration wants Georgia parliament to fight or engage in this conflict with Russia. And the thing is Georgia, economically speaking, socially speaking, academic, like everything, education, cultural, society, trade, is the most prosperous time in their nation's history, going back to probably medieval times, if not during the Soviet period. So why would they want to jeopardize that again? You know what I mean? Since 2008, when they were starting to increase.
If you look at a GDP per capita graph, I've got one up of the United Kingdom, and in 2008 they were more wealthy than they are today. By contrast, I've got one up of Georgia, and it's about They're about $7,000 a day.
Send me that graph, and I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up in the podcast so people can see it.
Sure.
If you want to send it to you. Send it private chat. So Georgia has been very blessed. I think the United States in some way had a little bit to do with U.S. aid, but for the most part, Georgia has a lot of natural resources, like predominantly agricultural, water, wine, certain types of agricultural goods, and they trade a lot with Turkey and other countries in the region. They have a really stable relationship with Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Turkey, and this is in an area of the world where Armenia and Turkey do not like each other. Armenia and Azerbaijan do not like each other, going back to the Armenian genocide during Ataturk, where he pushed them towards Syria, and that's why there's a lot of Armenians in Syria today, from the Anatolia region. Those Anatolians that were Armenian, that were living in the area historically, and it is what it is. I think the largest trading partners right now for Georgia is Turkey, Russia, and China. So that has a lot to do with the fact that they don't want to get involved in another conflict, geopolitical conflict, Ukraine and Russia type thing. It's not their place. I'm gonna pull this up right now. So continue what you were talking about, Adam, if you don't mind, and that while I pull this up. Oh yeah. Okay, here we go. Hold on. Present.
I was just saying that you look at the growth of Georgia versus the West, and I'm using the UK and Canada as two examples. They're not the United States of America, which has a brain gain effect. UK and Canada has been awful. This is the Georgian growth since 91. That's as far back as it goes. That is amazing. That's very impressive. Even just look at the past couple years on that chart, and it 2020, $4,200 per capita. 2022, 6,675. So 50% growth in 2 years, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, basically under Saakashvili and the Rose Revolution that occurred right before the 2000 Ossetian conflict. I think it was in 2000. I want to say 2003, but I have to go look it up. So basically, from that time period, I think Georgia has had a positive GDP growth of 3 to 10% every year consistently for the last decade or more, 2 decades. And even during COVID, it went back a little bit. I think you can see that in the graph here. 2014, I don't know, was it 2019? the
If you go off
2020.
on the right, the top link there says growth, GDP per capita growth. Yeah, that one.
There it is.
Again, you can see there's 2 periods of negative of retraction around the 90s, 91, and a short contraction 2020.
Yeah, so 91 is when is when they gained their independence. So it was a 2-year war that ended in 93, and there was that you can see where it started to rebound. And then in 2008 was obviously the Georgian Russian war conflict, and that's where they had negative GDP for 1 year, and then they quickly rebounded.
If you start the chart in 89, which is where you see the first contraction, again, there's a little bit of growing pains around that independence, and then it's very impressive growth rates, which of course is because it's a smaller economy, but also my understanding is this growth is fueled by free market policies as well as its geopolitical positioning, whereby it's next to the EU, on the Black Sea, trading with, as you say, Russia, China, Europe, with those free market policies.
It's on the axis of the old Silk Road from the old Greek and Roman days, between trade between East Asia and the ancient empires, and it's been a pivotal area. It's been part of the Greek Roman Empire, the Persian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, Russian Empire, Soviet Empire, now the United States Empire, and they've benefited quite substantially through those different empires and have remained intact predominantly with their language, culture, and parts of their map and territory. So it's like one of the oldest civilization or oldest countries in the world that is still around. Outside of it was part of Soviet Union, but the language is it's an ancient language. They're Orthodox people, just like Ukrainians, like the Russians, and it's literally they call it the miracle, that growth that we see in GDP between 2000 and 2015 onward. They call it the
question about Georgia. It's regarding one of the most international.
I think we lost them. Sorry, we lost Mario.
Oh yeah, I got a question. I mean, what's the image that the regular Georgian has about Stalin?
Naturally, Stalin is. Right. So to answer your question, naturally, Stalin was born in Gori. Consequently, was destroyed during the Russian-Georgian War in 2008. And because he has that presence as Georgians, he was a very stoic figure in Soviet history, and a lot of Georgians radiant, the fact that he was such a significant key figure in Soviet history, that he's remembered as a great leader. Somewhat, some Georgians, not all, but the younger generations, I don't think they can care less. But these old Soviet mentality, you understand, Soviet Union ended not too long ago. Within our parents, or grandparents, or even uncles and aunts that lived through the Soviet period, it ended in 91. So we're in 2024. That was like less than 30 years ago, give or take. Just over 30. Less than 30. So that's not even a lifetime yet. So there's still people in a lot of these Eastern European countries that still speak Soviet Russian. They still have Soviet mentality, and a lot of Russian influence in culture and their way of life. Regardless of what's going on in Ukraine, that they want to talk about, oh well, we speak Ukrainian now. It's like, okay, well, my time spent in Ukraine, and speaking the language there, Ukraine was really well spoken. most people spoke Russian as their first language, predominantly in Kiev and a lot of Eastern Ukraine. I had no problem communicating in Russian with anybody in Ukraine. Everybody spoke it. So, it is what it is. You want to add anything, Adam?
I'm just curious about the general level of wealth in Georgia compared to, for example, Sochi, Russia. I can kind of envision what the wealth level is like in St. Petersburg and Moscow, but what is it like in the northern region of Russia above the Caucasus Mountains that's not the Dagestani?
You mean like Chechnya?
It's not Chechnya, yeah. That's Russia, but not
Yeah,
Georgia.
proper Russia, not provenance of Russia like Chechnya. Yeah. I mean, I've met two Northern Caucasus people. One was from the Sochi area. She lives down here in Florida. I met her at a Russian restaurant. And I met a Muslim Northern Caucasus, and they seemed pretty well educated. They were fluent in English. I mean, one I met in America, obviously, it was on an American visa, and then one I met overseas while working. And like I said, their English was very, very well articulated. They seemed well educated, very culturally sound, towards globalization or whatever. So I mean, they're very knowledgeable. I believe that they have, like I said, I compare literacy when I'm trying to understand the potential growth of an economy or like a developing economy. I look at like three factors: education, like how much the country is investing in education per GDP capita of the population, literacy levels. Georgia's at 100%. I believe Russia's at 100% as well in their own language. And then I look at foreign language proficiency, literacy rate. I think Georgia's at 50%, and multiple languages being Russian or a second language. It's much higher in Central Europe. You see, like in like Luxembourg and parts of Austria and Germany and Switzerland, where there's a very huge multicultural, multi-ethnic population from immigration. But like for the most part, the Caucasus seems like a well-traveled route area. It's been closed off since '91, but a lot of like scholars and poets and artists and a lot of intellectuals have come from the Caucasus region over last 100 years or so during the Soviet period, even before that. So there is a lot of cultural influence in the area. Predominantly, like I said, northern and parts of southern Caucasus, Georgia in particular. And you can see that in Georgia because, like I said, they invest in arts and humanities. They have museums that are very easily, readily available, and you can gain free access if you needed to as a student. The opera is well funded.
Georgian and English and Russian.
Yes, Georgian and English. Yes, what's in Russian and Georgian? I mean, it's you gotta understand. They're multilingual people. They have, because it's a small country. I'm sure you have similarities in Bulgaria. That's where you're at right now, correct?
I can confirm or deny it, but you need to be a bit more specific in your question. Like everything here is in English and Bulgarian. Yes.
Okay, that's what I mean. Like so like the people are fairly. I believe literacy rate there is around 100%, and Bulgarian, it's close to that.
Probably. I mean, like you've got obviously the older people speak only Bulgarian and/or Bulgarian Russian. The younger people speak more English. I can get by speaking English, and I've learned however many words I've learned, and I do. It's especially when you go rural. It's good to be able to speak the language, but I've gotten by. You can get by with 10 words.
yeah, exactly. If you're a world traveler, you've as an expat, going to like East Asian countries is a little more problematic, but for the most part in like Europe, Eastern Europe, there's still that cultural influence from the West and from Central Europe and Western Europe in these areas. But like I said, for the most part with Georgia, is like I said, they're There's a lot of trade there. Like the GCC, predominantly like Saudi Arabia, Dubai. There's frequent flights now. Saudi Arabia has an embassy in Georgia now. They didn't have that before '91 or before. That's a rather recent event. And there's a lot of travel and tourism coming from the GCC and coming from Europe and Asia as well. So, I mean, like I said, a lot of their economy is based on tourism, hospitality, wine, water, agricultural goods, some light industrial goods, as well as the oil and gas from LNG from Azerbaijani fields in the Caspian. So they're a facilitator of the pipeline that goes from Azerbaijan and Baku through the Caucasus Mountains in the east into Turkey, basically, or the Black Sea, rather. So they do receive some financial wealth from that. But for the most part, Georgia's it's a free society. They have, it's a religion, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. The schools are I wouldn't say they're well funded, but they are well funded per capita comparatively to other countries in similar, development. And for the most part, it's the east to do business. It's in the top 10 in the world stats. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be said. There's like I said, it's a developing economy, just like any of these Eastern European economies, just like like Africa and Asia and the rest of the world. So what would be an interesting dynamic is if Georgia were to join BRICS, or at least be a observing member of BRICS. That would be a real interesting dynamic if that occurs. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it would be an interesting dynamic, to say the least, if that occurred. What the implications would be for that.
I read that Georgia is a European Union Free Trade Area member.
Correct. And I believe that's in Poti is one of the free trade zones that they have established there. I want to say Batumi is these are Black Sea coastal cities. Batumi is part of Ajara, which is a provincial region of Georgia, which is on the Turkish border, West Georgia, near the Black Sea and off the Black Sea and Turkish border. And like I said, there's a lot of it's still part of Georgia intact, but there is some free trade and economic growth in that area, predominantly tourism in the Batumi region and the Ajara region, rather. Gambling is legalized, so that brings a lot of people from. That's where a lot of your tourists are coming from Turkey and the GCC, because gambling is illegal, obviously, in those countries, and alcohol is banned and expensive, where it's allowed in GCC as well as in Turkey. So that's where they get a lot of the tourists from. And Iran as well. Persians come to Georgia on vacation as well to gamble. And it's not like this is what we're well known for or anything like that, but it's just it's tourism. I mean, it is what it is. You wouldn't think of anything differently like in Vegas or in what is it, Monaco or anywhere else like that. So just part of the the situation. And the interesting thing though about legalization of gambling and alcohol is you don't see the problems that I see with it in the United States, the level I see in the United States or any of these other countries. And I wonder if it's just the simple fact that a lot of Georgians don't necessarily partake in the gambling. Maybe they just can't, they're just not used to it, or they don't really care, because it is an Orthodox country at the end of the day. And, that may have like a particular influence on it. So it's something that would be interesting to study. You have any questions, Mario, or go ahead?
There's a question from the comments.
Oh, let me go to the comments.
Okay, let's check it out.
All right, so the question, you want to read it, Mario? Go ahead.
Thoughts on the recent SPIEF, SPIEF event in Russia? I have no idea what that is, so I'm going to pass the ball on you, Josh. Please go ahead, or to
It's
Adam.
the I'll introduce it, and Josh can give his thoughts. I believe it's the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, and it was kind of the BRICS summit of Russia. Supposedly, this is the -- economic forum in the world right now. That's the kind of the scale of it. This is where things are being decided. Way better than Davos, which is the again, we talked about multipolarity. Davos and etc. is this WEF led, this fascist G7. The St. Petersburg International Economic Forum and the BRICS, etc. It's the other side. It's the other division.
What is it similar? Is it similar to G20, or is it significantly smaller in scale, or is it what's the difference between like the G20 summit and like
what's this today? This thing that happened.
No, it was last week, I think, or maybe the week before.
Okay.
This is the event.
Week. It was where the announcement of Saudi Arabia coming off the petrodollar. I think it was last week, 6th of June.
This was the event that. Hold on, like I'm gonna mute for a second. I'm just gonna mute for a second. So this was the event where Scott Ritter, his passport was confiscated that he was trying to fly to in St. Petersburg, and he was on Gerald Slinte talking about it, and I think Judge Napolitano as well. So do you have a question, Mario? Sorry.
No. Actually, my knowledge in that area is completely nil. I have nothing to say about it because all I have to do is learn from it. So my listening to you is the best thing. Like my best aporte would be my best collaboration to you is to listen to you. So please go ahead.
I think the best place for business and networking on the western side of the world is going to be California, New York, maybe Florida, London, Frankfurt, Switzerland. On this side of the world, you've got St. Petersburg International Economic Forum as the kind of #1 place. You've got Dubai, you've got Beijing, I'm sure Singapore, other places, Hong Kong. But I think this is it's been described as the Russian Davos. This is the economic forum where I think the discussion of BRICS was massive, very important. We talked about the rejection of the petrodollar, and this is the gathering of the business leaders, political leaders, industrial leaders. This is where they get together, network, get deals done, and decide what they want to do. Not in a conspiratorial sense, just this is where you want to go if you're outside of the Western division.
I got a question for you, Adam. As a British man who has moved and apparently installed yourself in that area in the world, would you go back to England?
I will never go back to England.
What made you take that decision of being? I mean, you consider yourself a British. I mean, you're
I'm
not
British, sure.
Man.
Born and raised. Yeah, that's where I went to school. That's where my family are.
But what happened when you said not for me anymore? This is not my cup of tea. Seriously.
Well, the British government said, "I hear you have a business that sounds very cool," and I said, "None of your business, good sir." And so they kidnapped me and said, "Give us your business." And I said, "No." And they said, "We will kill you or send you to prison for life unless you give us your business." I said, "Go fuck yourself." So I was actually forced out of England.
Invited in no uncertain terms would be the political correct.
Yeah, my life was threatened, and there were additional attempts at. I've been kidnapped twice, with reported additional 3-4 other attempts. So I am not going back to England ever, because again, when you talked about the empire's dying, how do they how might they act? I say I think the issue with the United Kingdom is it's already totally ideologically deranged with, you can call it communism, you can call it cultural Marxism. Personally, I define it as a woke, progressive, cultural Marxism. And it's already ideologically deranged like that, and they want to systematically plunder and rape the people and threaten people for no reason. So in my case, they said, you founded a technology company. It sounds interesting. We perceive it could be a threat to the regime and its power. Give us your company. Tell us everything. We want to know who you're working for, who you're working with, what you're doing. And I said, no, you don't have any mandate. This is totally illegal. I want a lawyer. You're not allowed a lawyer. Okay. And then I was tortured a little bit and whatnot.
So I got I got two acronyms for you. Your beef is against MI6 or SAS?
No, neither. It's the National Health Service who say, I want this. The national. So this is the problem with. This is the problem with these decadent societies. It's really what it is. They're so comfortable. They don't have any problems. They go out and make them. They're focused not on reality, but on ideology and derangement. Out here in Bulgaria, there's enough problems in the world that you don't go out and make problems. There's enough people suffering. You don't have to go and invent the suffering. Whereas in the UK, specifically, they are so
bored.
No, it's a synthetic reality. Like, everything's controlled. Even the clouds aren't real. My mother comes out to visit and she says, look at the sky. I said, yeah, what about it? She goes, you've got clouds. Yeah, what do you mean? Well, I haven't seen clouds like that. It's all just chemtrails. Everything at the supermarket's wrapped in plastic. It's all sprayed. It's all controlled. There's no freedom. Everything's surveilled. It's a synthetic reality. It's a synthetic construction built on decadence and excess, and it doesn't have this real connection. This is why you go to Russia, which I can't do right now, but one of the reasons why the sanctions weren't so terrible is because they've suffered enormous trauma. The 90s, over 10 million Russians died. And then you say, right, we're going to sanction you. We're going to punish you economically for defending your own country. And they say, okay, we'll see how it goes. And Putin braced himself. And there was only this much contraction. They were think maybe we could lose 20% of the economy. And they didn't. And they've actually outgrown all the Western countries. And they're now the 5th largest economy, overtaking, I don't know if it was Japan or Germany, perhaps. I think Germany they've overtaken. So...
Well, it's a funny thing because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want you to consider this. It's a funny thing because I come from a society of suffering people, as well as, although not you, but you're living in a society of suffering people in which you solidarize. I mean, you commiserate with them. You feel a sense of empathy towards them. But it's funny to see when I say that people who are not used to suffer. I mean, the old Europe, like these societies that are so much into progressive because they have so much wealth that they can divest much of those wealth into these foolish causes. And I'm really interested to see how is this going to affect them psychically. I mean, in their own course of the society when the checks stop flowing. I mean, when they wake up one morning and no matter how hard they work, they're going to be poorer than yesterday. This is one of my concerns.
When you look at the poverty and these actions in the business cycle, it's not actually a reflection of real things that are happening. It's a reflection of fiat. Right? Fiat is abuse of power, or by decree of my authority. So, like, when the checks stop flowing, it's because the government fiat, the money that we're printing, that we've printed, they're going to stop printing because of the debt, because there's $1 trillion in debt servicing every year in the US alone. They're spending deficit $1 trillion every 100 days in the United States. It's insane. $35 trillion in debt. Not counting unfunded debt obligations like Social Security, pensions. So what's going to happen when the checks stop flowing? It's this intangible fake monetary system that's having these problems, but the real economy goes on. Now they interact with each other. If you've got this wealth effect, you think you're worth more because you've got, you know, physical dollars in your wallet. If your money, if you no longer have the money, you don't have the checks, you can't spend and purchase goods and services, you're going to be poorer, right? This is how things work. But with the real economy, the impact is reduced because it's less about these intangibles. You look at Russia and you look at their debt. Russia are purchasing gold. China is purchasing gold. Even central banks purchasing gold and commodities because these are real, whereas dollars, these are all fiat, fake. We need them to transact for the time being. They have value, but they're not money in themselves, they're currency. So you say, how are things going? There's things are improving. People are getting poorer. Inflation's going up. Costs of goods are going up. These are largely a result of government policies. The inflation here has gotten crazy. You know, coffee used to be $1.50. It's now $3.54 in some places. You can still get coffee for $1.50. Just not as nice coffee, not as same in places. But that's a result of the monetary inflation from Brussels and from Washington. So overall, there is also structural problems with the economies here. I mean, one of the main issues with former Soviet states, former socialist states, and the problem with government is corruption. So when you go through and analyze any of the micro industries, you'll find the root of most of the problems is corruption. And the question is corruption improving or decreasing? And in some industries, some sectors, it's getting better and some it's getting worse. This is why I speak to people here and I say, what do you think of Putin? And they can say good or bad. And I say, what do you think of your prime minister, of Boyko Borisov? They say, I hate him. I say, right, well, Putin, 24 years in office, has taken Russia from its knees to back on top of the world, whereas your leaders have taken over the country and they're raping you, raping your country and its industries. A commenter, Big Brain, says, was the 90s that bad for Russians? 10 million dead. Yes, it was awful. And it was semi-deliberate. Jeffrey Sachs, one of the top US economists, talks about this, how when they went and introduced market reforms into Poland, it was done in a certain way and it was quite successful. And then they went into Russia, which you have, Russia is different because it's huge. It's more of a wild east. But also he described how there was malice to it. They didn't want it to be successful. They wanted to rape its industry and its resources and take control. What happened in Russia is they got rid of the government, and then they rapidly introduced these market reforms, but they did so in a manner that was unable to facilitate the change. What ended up happening is you took out the control, the governance, the order. You took out the order and there was nothing there to regulate or maintain any order, any authority, nothing. As a result, you had the rise of criminal mafia, oligarchs. It was so bad that what would happen is basically the state industries were owned by all the people. What happened is everyone got one share in each of them. But there was no food. Everyone was poor. So the people had to sell their shares to get food, to be able to afford money. And then these were gobbled up by the oligarchs. And what would occur is these oligarchs, the little old lady would go home from the store with her bag of groceries. She would be followed home by a mafioso. They would break into the apartment, murder her and maybe the husband too, take over the apartment, pay the mayor, say, this is my apartment now. And all of a sudden they have property and then become real estate oligarchs. and they continue to build up a portfolio and collect power. There was, I mean, famine. People were starving. Everyone was starving. It was so traumatic, and that trauma is still in the Russian psyche. And I hear a lot of people, especially online, like, try and chat shit about the Russians, and they say, oh, there's problems in Russia, they're drinking, there's AIDS, there's they're importing Stan people. And I say, but you don't know the history of Russia, you're just looking at statistics. Like, why are these there? It's had a, it's not Russia that's been here for 100 years. It's Russia 25 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the trauma of the 90s. It was only once Putin came into office and has maintained the order and built it up and is tackling the corruption. And there's still problems, loads of problems. The problems shall continue and will continue. But again, you look at the Western leaders and how they're destroying their countries. I mean, I think the UK is the poorest it's been for 70 years by an unelected, Pishy Sunak. I think he's twice as wealthy as the royal family, right? Goldman Sachs banker, unelected, installed puppet by the Bank of England, destroying the country. The foreign minister, former member of parliament, unelected. We have to go after everything Russian. Who are you, man? Go worry about your country and getting things good. And people are suffering in the country because of your government policies, but they don't care because it is the end. It's by design. I think it's systematic. It's not oopsie. It's for all it's worth, let's use political office to enrich ourselves at your expense, and let's get out of here. I think that's what's going on with the Western governments.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, like what you're saying with corruption, that was the main thing. Like in Tbilisi under Saakashvili with the Rose Revolution, is the first thing he was concerned with was fighting corruption and draining the swamp. And I've mentioned in the chat that he was actually the first modern leader to basically drain the swamp politically in Georgia. And in doing so, he brought transparency to law enforcement. He brought transparency to the parliament. A new constitution was written. There was transparency in the constitution. And the Georgian people have lived through such turmoil due to 91 and the mafia, and Kutaisi, and they didn't believe it. They were like, no, we have a new style mafia. It's the government. And the younger generation is like, well, what? Like, look at what we have. Like, I can now go to Europe on a visa and stay for 90 days, and visa free. We couldn't do that when we were in Soviet Union. They remember their parents or their grandparents. I can study abroad. Like, I can work abroad. And hold on one second. Yeah. So the opportunities were there, what I mean? And like I said, corruption, I don't personally, as a foreigner, and not really a foreigner because I'm a permanent resident of Georgia, I don't see corruption. When I started my business, I went to the business office to get my license. They found me an English translator. They explained everything to me. When I had tax issues, I went to the tax office. They looked up my tax record. They told me how to do my taxes. They explained everything in English. Everything's published in English and Georgian. And it's been the most transparent government I have ever dealt with in the world. And I'm an American. I was born an American. My family's been here since before it was a country. And, we're one of the founding families of the country. And I don't see that in the United States, transparency. I believe the United States, like you're talking about, the UK is almost identical in nature. And I think it's the same way when I talk to people from Australia, from New Zealand, from Canada, from no matter where in the world.
All these
by the same people.
Owned by the same people.
By the same people. And it's like, I'm done with it. I'm selling my whatever I have here in the States. I am done. I'm leaving officially leaving the United States and renouncing my citizenship as soon as I am able to do so. You
You
had a
know who has a
question,
very
Mario, sir? Go ahead.
Actually, I would like to chime in a little bit on how was because I remember I was 10 years old when the collapse of the Soviet Union happened, and I saw live on TV. I remember I'm not understanding it very much, but understanding it was like something important that I couldn't grasp it. The fall of the wall, the breaking of the wall, and live on TV. I remember that, and of course, in the subsequent years, the 90s was a terrible turmoil for Russia. Not so much the Soviet Union as if Russia. Moscow, St. Petersburg, Oblast, all those places. You know who has a very good account of what was the Soviet Union like? The collapse of the Soviet Union was Louis C.K. Louis C.K. was, I don't know, early 30s. He was a young kid, and he had this trip that he was into it, and he explains to it. If you want to have something like a nice on the spot rank and file witness account of what was like, just listen to Louis C.K., the comedian. And then there's this guy, Konstantin Kisin, that explains that you could be a professional in the Soviet Union, and the next day, literally the next day, your son was shipped into a war with Chechnya. Your woman, your wife and daughter were forced into prostitution, and you had to sell your belongings in the street. I remember in the magazines, because back in the day we had no internet, so we had to rely on magazines, on journalists, on photojournalists and such. And I remember the everyday life of the Russian people, Russian normal people, citizens, what was like. And I remember a surgeon that had to live on imported sausages, that her whole salary she bought I don't know, a crate of sausages, and she said, okay, these sausages are in my freezer because it's big enough to hold these sausages, and I eat sausages 3 times a day for 2 weeks, and then the remains I'm going to live on bread. And I'm talking about a top surgeon in a Moscow hospital, and it was like that. It was people scrambling to make ends meet. People scrambling to make do. And yes, as Adam says, there was terrible things of corruption, but there were also terrible, in unmeasurable acts of solidarity. And the greatness of the Soviet of Russia came later on, when Boris Yeltsin stepped down and Vladimir Putin stepped up, because he understood well. Because if something that Vladimir Putin managed to came through with was the fact that he understood the pain of the everyday citizen. That's why he's so popular. I mean, he is a czar in the sense that he is the guy that gets shit done. Yet, he is a man who is in tune with what means to be Russian. And that's all I have to say on this subject.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting topic we've gotten into, but it's important, like I said, to see. The thing is,
I'm sorry.
we're
We're really
speaking.
beyond schedule.
It's fine. We're speaking about observing a country or a region as outsiders, and the perspective that we're giving. I mean, the fact that I live in this region, and so does Adam. But Mario, like you've been to Eastern Europe at all, or Russia?
No, the Eastern I was in Latvia. The Eastern.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I spent 10 days in Latvia.
So you have visited. I mean, the thing is that we're speaking as outsiders, and
oh yeah,
we're not necessarily speaking negative light on it, and that's what's interesting. And this is the reason why the Western economies, they want to silence people like us. And that's what I mean by, please like and subscribe and support our channel, and go to Telegram and support us, and support people like us. and spread the message, because like I said, it is what it is. There is better places to live than the United States or the Western economies. It is a sinking ship, and it is eventually going to capsize like the Titanic. I predicted in 2014, after seeing the merger of state and corporate powers, from the bailouts of the auto industry, the air industry, and the banking industry, due to failure of the government to regulate, resulted in a merger of state and corporate powers, which is fascism by definition. Gerald Celente is the one that coined that, by the way, and I'm referencing him to that. But the reality is that 2014, I wrote an extensive article about this, and the fact that by 2025, I see the end of the United States and Western economies as we know it. And by 2024, we will see serious signs of decay and serious signs of possible World War III, which we're in now. This article got me deplatformed from YouTube, from Twitter, Facebook. They deleted I was one of the first, because I'm Ivy League educated, so I had an actual EDU email to sign up, because the Ivy Leagues were the only ones allowed to have a Facebook account at that time. I was there from the original startup. That was deleted. All of my information, all of my all of my posts, everything was gone. Messages to people I went to school with that are no longer with us, that was deleted, that I can no longer go back to see, and I couldn't archive any of it. It's gone. Then like I said, that article also, I reposted it on LinkedIn. It was deleted twice. You go to LinkedIn now, you just see the title, the picture, that's it. The entire content has been deleted completely. So there is obviously major censorship from these as I call it, the digital gilded age, these digital, mainstream companies. They are effectively and actively deplatforming and silencing people in the world. It is happening. It is not a conspiracy. It is fact. And I'm telling you from firsthand experience, Adam as well. So, like I said, like and subscribe, follow us, follow other influencers like us. I'm not saying give me money or help me, but I mean, just, hey, add us. We're here, on Telegram and different platforms, and we're here speaking our mind, and we're the last of a dying breed of stoic people that are speaking our mind about this particular thing. And we've actually made the effort to leave the situation and go to a better place, where, I mean, you see other people just sit and just take it, like 1984. Hopefully Big Brother will give you scraps and let you, live your life and leave you alone. But that's not going to happen. Where the United States, the Western economies are in the final stage of, like I said, transition into new ideology. And I think, Adam, you covered that, and also Mario covered it about Argentina, how it went after the Gilded Age. It went through massive restructuring politically, and we know the history of Argentina. And that's what I see the future of Western economies in the next 20, 30 years. Really completely collapse.
Argentina is the mirror of the Argentina is the mirror of the future. It's the mirror of your future, because we were rich, and we thought that our richness was going to last forever, and we let ourselves behind. We slacked. That's what we did. When you say that we are so rich, we can't just lay back and allow ourselves for the social justice. Social justice was the first time that we talked about social justice in Argentina as social justice. The word social justice, the concept social justice, was in 1946. To help the others, because the government should help the others, and that was the beginning of our downfall. A downfall that was gradually, that eventually ended up in us convincing ourselves that we were better than the others, and we lead us to a brotherly, fratricidal wars between us. I mean, the concept of dirty war, in the sense that we will use the armed forces against ourselves to become an army of occupation, and that led to populist governments upon populist government, that led to, from being 0.2% poverty to a 50% poverty in a mere 80 years. So yes, We are your mirror of the future, dear listeners who are listening in the Western world, and there's nothing you can do about it because your governments, your rulers are going to be so caught up in the game of power that no one's going to pay attention to you, and that's why we in Argentina have one of the largest diasporas in the world. We have more than 5 million people all around the world from all generations because they got fed up of living in Argentina. And that's going to happen to you. Imagine that. That means at least 15% of our population is living abroad. So it is going to happen to you. I don't know what's going to be your destiny, but the ones who thrive in our country were the guys who actually made something with themselves. That means learn a trade and manage to sell it abroad. So we go back to the same thing. Once it becomes more of a man, I'm going to quote Dear Adam here. Become capable. Just learn to pull your own weight. Hold on a moment. I'm going to show you something. Let me see. Oh, no, shoes. There it is.
What are you cooking some bacon?
Oh yeah, I am a sucker for bacon. You know, trans fats be damned.
That's awesome. I stopped eating bacon. It's just too fattening for me. Sorry, but it looks good. What are you gonna say,
guys? I am proud to be in this. I'm proud and happy to be part of this stream. Thank you.
Yeah, we're always happy for everybody here. Yeah.
Mario, can you briefly summarize what caused the lack of prosperity and the collapse of Argentinian wealth?
In one word, hubris. We thought we took into our mouths more than we could chew. That's what happened. In the sense that we all thought Argentines that our prosperity would last forever. So we started spending way more that we could that the government could take in taxes. So they increased taxes, and when taxes were not enough, they started printing money because we always thought that the cow that gave us this milk would give us more and more milk.
So
until it stopped.
So to be clear, it's not credit card, personal debt and credit cards that was spending too much. It was government spending.
Government spending, banking spending, because the thing is that free money expands into all the aspects of society. Everybody, when there is easy money, everybody wants a piece of it. I mean, it's not about national or municipal. It's part of the human nature.
Yes,
the populist governments, when they act, yes. Go ahead.
But people can't.
I'm sorry.
Mint
You
money.
were saying something. Yes.
People can't mint money. Government can mint money, and government through fiat, and they can give the license to print money to certain businesses. These are called banks, right? So you've got the central bank and its corporations, right? What does it mean? Corporation incorporated with the state, which is a corporation at its limit.
Yes.
So you've got the government and its agents who are kind of private, but they're not. They're government. It's all establishment, all the state. So what I'm hearing is it doesn't appear like perhaps people were the problems here, but so far what you've said is the hubris of the government to be arrogant, prideful, overextend themselves, spend more than they could, make up for that with spending, and destroy the economy in the through printing, and destroy the economy in the process.
You still there, brother? Mario?
Well, Josh, just
Go ahead.
All right, this is the thing. First, governments overspend. Then they once the credit is done, they borrow, and once nobody more lends them, they resort to printing, and that's how it happens. Because economy is a system of because
I
it
think we
pumps
will.
everywhere. And the thing is that when everybody wants free money, and what happens is that when the one and everybody neglects their obligations, and they forget about their skills, and they buy, they very little people are the ones that buy industries. Everybody wants to buy the latest, the latest contraband. So what happens once the money, the free money is gone? Everybody happens to get the latest sneakers, but very little buys um, spare parts for their machines to run the factories. So the whole economy grinds to a halt, and everybody then becomes desperate, and everybody then becomes miracle solutions. And that's when the populist governments starts in a new wheel, in an eternal wheel of populist governments that borrow or overspend to fix the economies that the former populist governments create, and so on for 80 years, and everybody starts in a cycle of poverty. That's how we ended, and that's what's happening to you. Because when prices go up, you don't blame it to the printing of more dollars. What you blame it does is on the evil of your neighbor who wants to speculate, and who wants to make more money than they should make, and that leads to resentment. But this is the thing: what Javier Milei did in these 9 years, because when in his first appearance on television was 10 years ago, and he started grinding slowly about the economical theory. So when the populist government wants to warn us about the enemy of the speculator, and the how do you call it, the evil businessmen who want to charge you more for what they offer, is that no, it's because you are printing too much money. So that's the thing. I mean, what's when I did that? That's when I say when Javier Milei changed the thinking paradigm of the people. But it's not happening in the United States. The United States, the people from the United States are believing the lies of the populace because they don't know any better, because they didn't learn economic theory, in the sense that printing money leads to hyperinflation. See my point? And the same is happening to the British, because they conveniently removed financial education from schools. That's what happens. The inflation, the printing of money pervades every single system of society. Tell you this: you know why Javier Milei hasn't dropped in his popularity, in spite of all the hardships that the great majority of the people is living in, economically speaking? Because he has completely closed a lot of ministries, a lot of I don't know how to call it, official offices of, I don't know how, you know what I'm talking about. He has completely closed a lot of things. He closed a lot of how do you call it, taps. A lot of taps. He closed them, and he hasn't lost any popularity, because he started auditing all the official channels of distribution, and he has found, and this is not, I'm not joking here, he has found out that in 100%, every single one of the charities that the government was involved in, there was some sort of corruption into it. Every single one. And the more they act against him, the more they show the true colors. So it's like now, the Argentinian people is realizing in horror, in the shock and awe horror, what the true faces of populism is. But we have reached this point. The people from the United States, the people from England, the people from the world need to go through that process of learning about the economical theory, get rid of those populist, how do you call it, scam con men, and then see with horror from themselves. But they need to go through that process, and they just starting it. So for all those people listening to me, leave the United States, because it's going to get ugly. It's going. I know you love the United States. United States is a country that, as a superpower, it's done. But as a country, as a noble nation, will never die. Because just as the Russian, as a noble nation, will never die, because the people in the countryside who get the rednecks, or those who are so looked down upon, the Hicks, are actually the blood of the nation. The least, how do you call it? Los menos agraciados, the least taken care of, the least respected, are actually the most important, because they work. These simple workers, they actually excel at skilled jobs, but they spend their afternoons drinking beer and shooting empty bottles that they loved it, because with the caricature, the cartoon of the redneck with the trucker cap, and the rifle, and the beer belly, who that those guys, those are the backbones of the nation. Not just the United States, any nation. I'm sure there are rednecks in Bulgaria, I'm sure there are rednecks in Russia, and they are disrespected. But those guys, they are patriots, they are hardworking, and they understand that one day, one day's wage for one day's work, and they will keep the United States afloat. But you need to embrace that. You need to embrace that philosophy. Yes, I'm not saying to get drunk on beer. I'm not saying to indulge in those pleasures, but work those hours with that conviction, because it's the only thing that is going to keep you afloat. Because those rednecks, those preppers, they are going to survive, because they are going to pull by their bootstraps, and they will make it, because they will die trying, and some of them will die, just like the Russians that survived communism and survived the 90s. They survived out of pulling themselves on the bootstraps. And I'm sorry, I'm letting myself be carried away again. So I'll let you guys go on. Continue, please. Go ahead, guys.
No, it's very good points. Yeah, like in Georgia, I know a lot of families. They relied on the villages in the '90s, and a lot of people went out to the villages during the war in '91. But much the same, I guess, in the UK, Adam, right? During World War II, a lot of I guess, people that were able to go to their estates outside of London, towards southern, the western part of England. Did they do that during World War II? I believe they did, right?
There was evacuations. So those that lived in London
Oh, okay.
would be sent on the train to go live with the family in Exeter and York, elsewhere.
But the thing is this
and some with families, some just say goodbye to your parents, or put you somewhere.
the
I think
Pakistanis,
if you know
the
just
immigrants.
this one quick point, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Narnia. The beginning of that movie is the Blitz, where they send the kids off to this family home out there.
Yeah. So, but this is the thing. The Pakistanis, not the Indians, but all these sub-Saharan Maghrebis that are into the forced immigration. They don't go to the countryside. They stay in the main cities, where they get the goods that are produced in the countryside. But they will never go to the countryside. The countryside is the land of the white man, because I'm talking about the white man, the redneck, that I respect a lot. I have great respect for the redneck, the blue collar worker, that guy who will, those places are safe from the ugly immigration, because these immigrants that are pushed by BlackRock are never going to do what it takes them. They just want more of what they already had. And thankfully, the Europe is waking up from that pipe dream, because it was a pipe, because it was sounded really good. And I yearn for the moment in which the European from the old country, because I am half Italian, half Spanish, and I love those nations. I love them, and it pains me to see that they are not having children and they are importing migrants, and that sort of migrants. The people who don't want to work. Forget about the skin color. It's the working ethic. There is non-existent. All they know what to do is plunder and rape, and that's the only thing they do. And I'm sorry, France, for instance, France is lost. London is lost. France, Paris is lost. I don't know. And this is the thing, for all those young men listening to me, you will be better than them if you learn to become, as Alan says, capable. Become capable. You know something? Vladimir Putin had to work as a taxi driver. Just
Is
imagine
that true?
Vladimir Putin.
Supposedly.
Oh wow.
Like,
I
this
did
is
that.
after he was a KGB officer working in Germany, in Eastern Germany. Collapse of the Soviet Union, I hear he had to work as a taxi driver.
Yeah, I've done it. It's what it
You
is.
know what? Something for you boys, who not Josh and Alan, but to all the listeners, the young listeners. Trades are fun. Trades are much fun to do than office jobs, because you get to go
Yeah.
outside, you get to do
Oh, I
shit.
aspire to not work at the computer.
That's what I
No,
was doing all day today. I was outside the whole day in the sun,
yeah,
working and doing stuff.
you know, there is a sexiness in welding. As I told him, you get the jumper, the jumpsuit, and then you put on the helmet and the thick gloves, and then you begin with the sparking, and it's like zzz, zzz, I mean, embrace the fun of the skilled trade. When you go to work in the pastries and you're in the oven and you begin to work on the things, it's awesome. And we are all tired. So how about this? How about it? We are 3 hours in, and we are all tired. How about this? We close today, and we end up on a high note. I left a little video for Josh. If you can play it now, and we can all sing it together
All right, hold on a second. Let me pull it up.
as a closing.
One
It's
second.
just,
You said, what did you send it to the Telegram group, right?
no, it's in your Telegram DM. It's in our private DM.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see it. Hold on
Right,
one second.
right below the StreamYard address. It's called Monty Python. I'm sure Adam knows what I'm talking about. We're gonna go. We're gonna play it.
Yes. Life of Brian.
Hold on one second. Let me.
It's a classic, actually.
I'm pulling it up. One second. It's gonna take some time. Sorry. All right, here it is. It's coming up.
Oh, don't worry about it.
All right. 1 second. Okay. All right. Let me share screen. Share screen. Hold on. It'll show up. There it is. Do you see it?
Oh yeah, and let's sing it together with Adam.
All right. Can you hear it?
No.
Hold on. There's like, I'll pull it up on the other browser. 1 second. Sorry.
Go ahead, no worries, man. This is, I'm sure our dear audience will understand. Just hold it a moment. Just having technical issues.
Yeah.
But I promise to wait.
Mario.
It's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, I gotta pull it up in Chrome. Sorry.
Don't worry about it. Adam, are you in? You have audio? Can you?
Yes, I'm
All right.
here.
All right.
I got it pulled up. 1 second. Let me share it. I've never seen this before, so like it's gonna be interesting.
You can trust me. You can trust me. Go ahead.
All right.
Where's Adam? Because it's not as fun. Thank you. Let me see. I'm gonna go to the camera.
How to open your car door.
There you go. Thank you to our dear audience to be with us. This has been 3 fun, rewarding, beautiful hours, and we wouldn't be who we are or what we are without you. This is the Liquid Monkey. My friends here, please take a bow. Professor Redpill, Josh Stubble, and Adam Maxwell, a man who has, I have to say, not many people have the honor of being threatened to be killed by the British government, which is, to my books, is nothing short of an honor.
Thank you very much. Connect with me on Telegram, please. It's the best place. Liberty Rising Group and the Liberty Rising chat. Have an X, Liberty Rising X. Don't use it so much. Telegram, best place to be.
Always look at the bright side of life. Remember, boys, life is going to shit. Learn a trade, but never forget to laugh. Just remember what Jordan Peterson said. Pet a cat whenever you have the chance to. Remember that life is beautiful, and we love you. So, until the next time. Josh, you can say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Love you all. Success.